My name is Mark Jackson. I am the Assistant Director of Assessment Logistics, and we're just glad to see you guys. So, Dr. Peltier is going to be coming this way. Dr. Heather Peltier is the Chief Assessment Officer for the state of Tennessee. That's actually kind of an overarching position now that covers both assessment logistics and assessment design. She's going to be talking to you about that in just a minute. So, here's how the schedule is going to work for the day. The basics of the schedule are simply this. We're going to talk this morning about pretty much on the agenda that you've got. What we've discovered during the week, you guys are day 5. If we just melt down right in front of you, that might be a reason for that. But what we've discovered through the week is that we actually are a little ahead of schedule. We will not push all the way to 3:30. We will be able to let you go home a little earlier than that. Maybe a lot earlier than that, kind of depending on what goes on. I want to encourage you as well as you have questions. Please grab a piece of paper. You're welcome to raise your hand, and we'll try to answer questions in that format. But we'll also, if you have a scratch paper or something and you want to just hand me a note, we'll take some time after the break and after lunch and at the very end of the day to do kind of a parking lot presentation. So this is Dr. Peltier, and I'm going to go ahead and let her get started and make sure she's got the clicker she needs and all of that.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Peltier. The microphone's a little weird. And let me to the side. Mary Badawala, our Assistant Commissioner, is here in Jackson today, and she will be joining us a little bit later. And with me, we have brought much of our team. Danette Colby is our new Executive Director of Assessment Logistics. Many of you know Danette because Danette is a former testing coordinator, district testing coordinator from Putnam County. And Danette, whenever I first came here, I got to know Danette pretty well because every time I would go to an event, whether it was item review or standard setting, Danette was there. And so she's very interested in assessment. And we've been trying for a while to get her on board. So she has finally agreed to come over to the dark side. But we're really, really happy because we think that Danette will definitely be able to make a positive impact on this testing program. And she does bring this experience as a district testing coordinator, which I think is so valuable. We're very excited. Mark Jackson, we've all met. Freddie Myrick is not here with us today. And Dufer, there's like a line of people out the door waiting to hop in. And Dufer is our program manager. Amanda Hassman is our new business analyst. She will be coming a little bit later to talk about Visibility Tool. Donna Bond is not with us today. And now I'm going to move to the assessment design team, who has joined our department, which we're very excited about. Chrissy Fox, the executive director, is not with us today. And actually, no one on this list is with us today except for Sandy Qualls. Sandy Qualls is our ELA assessment specialist. And she will be popping in a little bit later this morning to talk to you all about some of the changes to the assessment design. Thank you, Sandy. We also have with us some district testing coordinator ambassadors. And so who do we have with us today? We have Kevin. Yay. We have Brant. There's Brant. Oh, Brant. Yay. Do you have anyone else?
Marion.
Oh, Marion's here too. All right. Yay. We've got 3 ambassadors. You guys are a lucky group. I wasn't used to that because every other location has only had 2. So this is bonanza. So you guys have the DTC ambassadors, and we also have the Assessment Logistics Advisory Committee, which are district testing coordinators who are, they are serving also in an advisory capacity for us. And where are our ALAC members? I know we have a few here with us today.
Yeah.
Yay.
And Michelle is hiding back somewhere.
Yay. All right. So if you have some strong feelings about the assessment program, some feedback you really want considered, some questions. Kevin's shaking his head saying, do not come to him. Choose someone else. But they are really here to be your, and now like this microphone. They're really here to be your voice. And so, please go speak to them because they really, whenever we have these meetings and they are serving in the advisory capacity, they really are advocating for what is in the best interest of the district. What are some changes that might need to be made to the program? And there are many things that we refer to them about, and we ask for their advice and consultation on. So we're really very, very appreciative to have them on board and working with us. I'm going to talk a little bit about first modes of delivery. So for this year, as you know, the plan was originally for 18-19 to have 5 through 8 testing computer-based. We have pulled back on that to allow the vendors some time to provide some additional proof points to be sure that they can handle the Tennessee testing program and all of its complexity. We have a very large testing program, one of the largest in the nation, just because we've had so many subjects and grade levels. And so, so we've pulled back a little bit, and really we're going to focus on doing computer-based testing well this year. So paper-based testing is going to be the grade 2, ELA and math 3 through 8. So it's like 6 through 8. Because if you remember, there was a pause, and so it's like 3 through 5. Science 3 through 4, which will be a field test year. No school reports will be returned. And then computer-based testing, all the EOCs will still be computer-based, as well as science grades 5 through 8, which again are field test year. And because it's that field test year, and the items, right now we are just gathering the baseline data in terms of how those test items perform. So that's why there aren't student scores, because we don't want you inadvertently disadvantaged or advantage students on the basis of the items that they receive in their particular test. Just because we right now have no idea how these items are going to perform, which is baseline. And this whole presentation is up on LiveBinder. If you want to go ahead and download that, and then you don't need to write all these down. A few improvements for 18-19 that we've been working on that we wanted to share with you, because we hope that these will make some really positive changes to the program. So first, we are transitioning to ETS as our design vendor. ETS has been in the past our design vendor for science social studies. Questar has been the design vendor for ELA and math. And one of the things that we have really appreciated about the partnership with ETS is they have a really strong track record of staying on timeline and delivering things on schedule. Because many of the challenges that we faced this past year, including the delayed shipment challenges, were caused because the schedule of assessment design had slipped, which then compressed the amount of time that logistics and administration had to get everything ready. So if the test isn't created in time, it really reduces the amount of time you have to get it printed, to get it shipped. And then things like storms in the Northwest, boxes getting put on a train instead of a truck, all of these can greatly impact in a negative way, just because we don't have that buffer time. So we're really optimistic that moving to ETS, who does have this really mature assessment development program, will do a better job of meeting our timelines. And we think that you'll see it on the administration end. There will be no standalone field test for the next 2 years. And I just want to clarify what this is. A standalone field test is that field test that is outside the operational window. If you remember, we would sample about a third of the schools around the state to participate in this every year. So we still do have science as a field test, but it's taking place during the operational window, so it's not the standalone field test. You don't have a secondary testing window right in the middle of spring. We are continuing to reduce the number of tests, the amount of time spent testing. We are planning for an infrastructure verification test. That is October 23rd. You should have all received information about this. We do not have as many districts signed up as we really need in order to be able to fully test the capacity of the system. So if this is something that your district all can help us with, we would greatly, greatly appreciate it. One of the things that we are looking at doing for this is because we recognize right now that the reports that you get back from the practice test are less than useful, maybe not even a little bit useful. Not like the microphone cuts in and out. Reports are not very useful, so we are. So we are going to we're going to work to actually get Questar to give us a raw data report, and we at TDOE are going to be building some reports that we will then be able to share, some enhanced reports for practice tests that we can share with districts that do agree to participate in this. So we're hoping this will be an additional incentive to participate in this test, is the opportunity to get better data for your students and their practice test results. If you participate in this, you'll do a one-time poll and develop these enhanced reports for districts. And in terms of exactly what that's going to look like, we actually have a discussion early this coming week, to try to kind of lay out exactly what that is. But we are very excited about getting something more useful for you. Changes to text-to-speech capability, as you, I think, probably have heard, because we've discussed it several times. One of the things that really created challenges for us this past spring in administration was that in between fall and spring administration, the vendor changed the text-to-speech feature. And when they changed it, they switched to a feature that required constant online connectivity. Now, the beauty of the Nextera platform is that that's not supposed to happen. It's supposed to be able to operate without connectivity so that students can just test. They don't even know that the connection might have dropped. And then whenever the connection picks up, it just submits the test for them, and they're able to just carry on. The text-to-speech feature was the thing that was preventing that from happening. And so we have directed Questar to revert to the original text-to-speech feature that does not require the online connectivity. So they have done that, and we're really happy that that has happened. We think that's going to make a big difference. We reduced the number of forms. One of the things that I think you probably struggle with the most, and I will tell you, I have been a building and a district testing coordinator. So I said, wow, I can't believe people have been handling this for so long, is trying to match the different forms and versions, and there were different answer documents depending on which one it was. That is a logistic nightmare. So when I came here and I found this out, I said, we are going to put a stop to this. So we have one form now, which is great. No more mixing and matching. We're going to make sure that any school only gets one version. And we will also, and Mark will be talking a little bit about this later, so I don't want to steal his thunder, but we have also set it up so that the answer documents are the same across tests, so you don't have to worry about answer documents being different. So there were just some things that we are doing on the design end that are going to make administration a lot easier. We're very excited about this nice alignment that we are now having with the design team. And then reducing the number of test booklets. So for grades, not for grade 3 because it's the consumable right in the booklet, it would just be too large to be able to do this. But for grades 4 through 8, ELA and math, we're combining the two into one test booklet so that you have fewer booklets to have to manage. And they'll have the little seal code, so the wafer seal, so they'll be sealed securely. For grades 4 through 8, ELA and math, they're going to be printed in the same book. So you'll get one book to handle instead of having two separate books for that group. Grade 3, they're going to be separate, and that's because remember it's the right in the booklet, so they're thicker, so it wasn't possible to merge them into one. All right, improvements for communication. So communication is one of the big pieces that we have seen a miss from our department. So we are working to do better for you. So first, we have a TM-ready customer service role that we are hiring for. We finished interviews, and we are looking to make an offer to someone this coming week. So we're excited about that. This will be a role, someone who will be able to go out to your districts, work with you in person, and support you. We've chose this person. It is a role that is full of travel, so you'll be traversing the state. So feel free to call upon once this person is hired, feel free to call upon him or her to come and out to your district and work with you in person. We are also working to provide better course code guidance, better accommodations guidance. We have a help desk at TDOE, and we're going to leverage that help desk for assessment purposes. Right now it's being used for EIS. And the reason for that is because some of the feedback we heard is that you were trying to get someone on the phone at TDOE. Most of you guys were calling Mark, I think. And Mark is one man and was having trouble getting through all the phone calls. And so we're happy to try to set up a system so that you will actually be able to talk to someone who will get you the right person. Because it might be Mark, it might be Danette, depending on what the specific issue is. So we hope that will be better for you to get to talk to people more immediately. We are working on a ticketing system for 10 assessment. We had a color coding system that we thought was going to help us respond better, and it's helped a little bit, but there have still been some lag times that I'm not very excited about. And so we are now working to get a ticketing system, like if any of you work with companies that use Zendesk or some other customer service ticketing system, we'll make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. We have the Team Ready ambassadors. The district testing coordinator Team Ready ambassadors are going to be doing live trainings and working with other district testing coordinators. And then we have the content ambassadors who will be doing live trainings for teachers around the state. Because that is another one of the areas that we saw we need to do a better job of communicating. There's a lot of misunderstanding about the testing program by teachers because we really have not done a good job reaching out directly to teachers to get that message out there. And so these are teachers who are serving as the ambassadors. They are participating in all of the different assessment development activities, item review, range finding. We're flying them out to Minnesota to observe the scoring process and see what the training looks like and what that is. So they will really be able to speak knowledgeably to teachers about what goes into the assessment design and just how much educator involvement there really is in it, because I think that's something we've not done a good job so far of communicating to teachers. And last but not least, we are going to have online training sessions available for building testing coordinators in the spring, and for test administrators, that one will be available starting in the fall. This will be an online course. For test administrators, for example, it's going to cover exactly what they need to know in order to give a test. So we'll go over things like test security, the testing environment, what can and can't be on the walls, which was a lot of the questions we got from teachers. Some basic troubleshooting for the Nextera platform, what you do if something does go wrong, or some kind of basic tier 1 things that you can try. And how to administer a test with accommodations as well. So it's going to go over that piece. So really what they need to know to administer the test. This will be completely optional, so it will be a resource where you maybe have a new BTC or someone who says, hey, this is up there. Why don't you guys go through the online training? Whenever they're done, they can print a certificate, hand it to their BTC as documentation that they've actually been trained and gone through the process. So if you all do have any teachers that are willing to participate in this, that would be great, because we are really hoping to get some teacher feedback this fall and then make some edits to the course based on that feedback so that it's even in better shape for spring testing when it hits a larger audience. Courses will be online. They're actually in that assessment milestones document that was sent out, and it's on October 30th. They're going to go live. And actually, someone from the IT department is going to be coming in a little bit later, and they're going to talk to you about how teachers will be able to access these courses. So there were some issues in 17-18, things like multiple forms that we talked about, some last-minute changes to TAPs, items needing to get omitted, which are really caused by some of those schedules for the test creation that kind of pushed things last minute, which made the TAPs creation last minute. So we're hoping these changes that we're making will address this. Confusion about allowable accommodations. So we will be getting out in the next week or two a document for you that has a table, and it has by test. These accommodations are or are not allowed by test, so we hope that will be a really helpful resource. Some unusual requirements, like third graders can't wear watches today, so we're going to remove those kinds of things. And then really lengthy early elementary tests. So we're working to get back in line with what we're seeing more nationwide. Our third and fourth grade ELA tests were extraordinarily long. So we're working to consider administration more as we do the test design, kind of those changes we talked about earlier, increasing the teacher involvement in design with that ambassador program, and then that assessment milestones document that lays out for you all of the dates that are really important for the Team Ready program for this coming school year. So you can see at a glance when things are going to happen. We hope those will be helpful. All right, and now it's time for Mark Jackson. I feel nervous. He's ready. He's hiding outside the door.
Yeah, we have Hopefully the sound is better in the back. Thumbs up. Yes. It's like I'm talking to people in another country. The whole Mexico to Canada thing. How's it going back today? Oh, don't do that. Don't cut out on me. All right. So we played this game last year, so we're going to play again this year. This is Name That Date. So you're going to see up on the screen, or if you're back there, you're going to hear me read it out loud. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you 4 possible answers, and you're going to shout out back to me what the correct answer is. So the name for the final data poll for the date for the final data poll for provisioning Nextera for fall 2018 EOC is Halloween, October 31st, Chicken Soup for the Soul Day, November 12th, National Fast Food Day, November 16th, that's my holiday, or Thanksgiving, November 22nd. Which is the correct answer? November the 12th, you are correct. Chicken Soup for the Soul Day. November the 12th is the final day that we will pull data to go into Nextera. It'll be pulled on Monday evening after 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. You will see it in Nextera on Wednesday, November 14th, and we'll talk about that in more detail later today. All right, next question. The date that fall EOC taps will be posted on Live Binders and on Nextera Admin is Name Your Car Day, October 2nd. National Pasta Day, October 17th. Halloween, October 31st. Or Black Friday, November 23rd. What is the correct answer? By the way, you can cheat if you use your assessment milestones document that Heather referred to. The correct answer is C, Halloween, thank you. It is Halloween. You know, all I can do, I look at that list and go, oh, Black Friday, no, can't do that to them. No, we will have it by the end of this month. We're wanting to check and make sure we have everything exactly right, but that will give you the month of November to be able to train testing administrators and make sure everyone is ready to go the day after Thanksgiving, fall EOC testing. The last day for online practice and CAB for fall 2018 is Operating Room Nurse Day, November 14th, Button Day, November 16th, Have a Bad Day, November 19th, it's from the internet, or World Hello Day, November 21st. It is the 16th, that is correct. Button Day, that's the last day for online practice. So let me explain why that's the last day for online practice. So last year, in the fall, we kept online practice. I really don't want this thing to stop cutting out on me. We kept online practice open through the day before Thanksgiving, right? That Wednesday. So on that Monday, people came back, some test administrators, obviously none from your districts, of course, came back and pardon me just a second. Bruce, are we good? Kind of messing around, I'm hearing different things back on me. Are we still able to hear good in the back, please? We are still able to hear well. Okay, this is day 5. It's just that feeling of everything that's been following us around. The clouds and the rain that have followed us from place to place is now actually indoors. Okay. Here's what happened. Speaking of bad things happening indoors, there are a couple of test administrators who went ahead and printed operational login tickets. And in one case, borrowed one from a kid, projected the operational test onto the screen, and worked through it with students because they were doing practice. One other class printed operational login tickets for all the students, told them it was practice, got them in, and didn't realize until they were almost halfway done with subpart 1 that they were actually in the operational test. Here's the deal. We do not want that to happen. When that kind of stuff happens, we have to RI all of those tests, nullify all those scores, initiate a potential breach of security investigation on the crazy person who did this, figure out what went on. So we made the decision last spring, and we're continuing it this fall, that we're going to go ahead and close practice early. Now, it's closing on Friday the 16th. There are some of you guys that don't even come back after that day, that you take the whole week for Thanksgiving. I'm a little jealous. We don't do that at TDOE. Some of you get have Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday off. Some of you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but you know that nobody's brain is actually engaged for those 3 days, not just students, but the adults as well. So I don't think we're losing a whole lot of time in doing this, but we're trying to make a very clean break so we don't have any kind of security issues. The last day of the fall 2018 testing window is National Cotton Candy Day on December 7th, International Monkey Day on December 14th, Crossword Puzzle Day on December 21st, or not coming soon enough. B is the correct answer. D is an acceptable answer. We will also give you credit for that one. So with all of that, I want to show you a calendar. Obviously, those of you in the back, hey, look, it's a calendar. You can't see any of the details. But it talks on the calendar about all of the different responsibilities that you have throughout the year. This is similar to calendars we've shown you before when you get this presentation on Monday morning. And here's a suggestion. We may make a change or two over the weekend. The final presentation with everything taken into consideration will be posted on Live Binders and on Nextera Admin on Monday morning so that you have it for you. But this is kind of a calendar to show you this is what your life is going to look like. Now, nobody runs screaming from the room. You guys knew what you were getting into. Well, most of you knew what you were getting into. Some of you just got handed the job, right? Somebody grabbed you, you weren't paying attention in a meeting, and suddenly you were the district testing coordinator. And I'm sorry. Anyway, here's why we show you this calendar. It's not to scare you. It's to say this is a job that's going to require you to plan ahead. This is not a job. At one point, it had a cycle where it was very much everything happened in one specific period, and then it was all done for a while, and then it is much more a year-round job than it used to be a district testing coordinator. So what we want to encourage you to do is to plan ahead for it. We want to be your backstop in all of these procedures and processes to make sure that you guys are taken care of. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Amanda Hassman. She is our business analyst for assessment logistics. I realize, as I've been talking about this week, that saying the words business analyst makes it sound like all she does is work with spreadsheets, and although that is some of what she does, her primary role has to deal with technology, particularly the visibility tool, but also with Live Binder site and with the newsletter and the number of communications pieces. She has a variety of things on her plate, and we really appreciated her being here. So she's going to talk to you about data cycle and visibility tool.
It is.
All right. I guarantee you I'm going to trip over this ball. So, all right, guys, like you said, my name is Amanda, and I just came on board with the department about 4 months ago in June. So I'm really excited to be here and put some faces with some names that I have been interacting with since I began. So to start out, we're going to talk about the data cycle, and most of you are probably familiar with this, but for those of you who are new to your position or may need a refresher, data first. You know what? I'm standing right here. When you see it here, I feel like you all can't see directly. District SIS systems is where your data will originate from. After we get it from the district SIS, it then gets pulled into EIS. After it's in EIS, that's where you can use an application called the visibility tool to view your data. Once data is in the visibility tool, then it's available for districts to review. You can make changes, updates, corrections as needed. In order to provision a student for a test in Nextera, there's a couple of basic requirements that need to happen. These are called our business rules. And none of these are going to surprise or shock you. For example, a student needs to be enrolled in a school. Pretty obvious. That student has to have an instructional grade associated with their record. They have to be assigned to a class, which is the state course code, and then there's a local class number, which is the state course code with the section appended onto the end of it. There has to be a teacher of record with that student, and that teacher of record has to have a valid TLN, or teacher license number. About a minute ago, I talked about something called the visibility tool, and you might already be familiar with this, but in case you are not, the visibility tool is an application that was developed by, the TDOE tech team, and it provides you greater visibility and clarity into the data upload from your district SIS to EIS. You can access the visibility tool on Orion, and I do want to point out
When you log on to Orion, you're not going to see an application called Visibility Tool. It's going to be called TN Ready Enrollment Verification Portal, but Visibility Tool is a lot easier to say. The comparison that I like to make with the Visibility Tool is to a window. So when you look through a window, you can see what's on the other side, but you can't change it. Just like the Visibility Tool, it's a read-only application. You can see the information that's in EIS, but in order to make changes, you have to do that in your district SIS. You can't actually make changes in the Visibility Tool itself. Throughout last year, the assessment team at the department, heard a lot of feedback from districts on pain points with the Visibility Tool, and we've been working hard over the summer to find ways to enhance the tool to alleviate those pain points. So we did a webinar just, I believe it was last week, where we went over some of these enhancements. So this might be familiar to you, but just know that all of the changes that are coming to Visibility Tool or have come to Visibility Tool this year were based on district feedback. So we want to hear that feedback. We want to know how it's going to be useful to you all, so please keep on providing that. One of the most exciting changes is that for the first time, you will be able to download student-level data in a CSV file. So when you log onto the dashboard, you see a bunch of squares with a bunch of boxes with various metrics in them. This example is student population by grade level. So, for example, in here you see that there are 76, I believe, students enrolled in second grade. You can now click on that number, 76, and it's going to download a report in a CSV file of those students. So you can see which students those are, rather than just seeing a rolled up number. In my example here, it shows that the download is called My Report, but I'll just add to that the tech team has made some additional enhancements since that time. So now the report that you get downloaded will be titled the metric. The title will be the metric that you're looking at. You can also get a downloaded CSV file when you do a completely drilled down search, meaning on the left-hand panel, when you have that search criteria, you can search by, once you select your date and your school, you can search grade level, you can search content area. Once you do that completely granular search, in the right-hand corner, the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see a blue box that says download data, and that's where you can download the data that appears on your screen. One of the issues, and I saw this myself and I thought, that's terrible, is when you encountered an error in Visibility Tool last year, it would literally, as the description of the error, it would say one single word, error, which tells you nothing about it, right? What's the error? What's wrong? How do I fix it, right? We've developed user-friendly error messages now. So, for example, here's a high priority metric. So this is the number of teachers without a valid email address. Well, you need to know which teacher that is. In this case, it's just one. So when you click the question mark next to that metric, it's going to pop up a box showing you which accounts that applies to. So you can see which teacher does not have a valid email address. This creates more actionable information for you so that you're not just seeing the word error with no information about what to do about it. High schools, we know, will be especially excited about this one. So last year, in order to view a content area, you had to first select a grade level. That's not useful for a high school who has students enrolled in multiple grades in a single content area. You can bypass that now. So now if you want to view all of your students enrolled in Algebra 1, for example, you can do that without having to specify a grade level. So we hope that that will be very beneficial to high schools especially. There were some additional enhancements that we made. For example, the hierarchy by which we calculate the race and ethnicity metrics. What you need to know is that what you see in Visibility Tool will now be reflective of what's in EIS. Additionally, we are going to start sending out automated weekly error reports so that you're going to get that if you're a district testing coordinator or an EIS supervisor, you're going to get that directly in your inbox every week to see a list of errors that are in the visibility tool, things that you may need to correct or change. Now, if you're saying, I haven't got that email yet, because it hasn't been sent out yet. So you're not missing out on anything, it has not started yet. The default date on that left-hand panel, that search criteria, the default date is no longer just going to be the previous day, it's going to be the date for which we have the most updated information. So if data is taking longer to get into the visibility tool than what we expected, and yesterday's information is not the most updated, the default date will be the day with the most updated information. And then we've included a new metric, 50% enrollment. It's going to show you the number of students that have been enrolled in your school and or district at least 50% of the year. There's one last enhancement that I'll go over, and it's not in the visibility tool, but it's related to it. There's an application in Orion called EIS Performance. In that application, our tech team is working to install a feedback mechanism. This feedback mechanism is going to allow you to see visibility into how that data upload into EIS is progressing. So the issue last year was that districts would go into the visibility tool and they may not see updated information, and you didn't know if it was because there was something incorrect in the data or if it just hadn't finished uploading. So we're taking that guesswork out for you, and you're going to be able to go into EIS Performance, and it's going to show you a step-by-step measure of the process that it takes to upload into EIS, and you're going to be able to say, okay, well, I don't see my district data here, but look, the upload only started an hour ago, and it's not completed, and this is how far along it is in that progress of doing that. That's a feature that we are working to develop, and it's coming in early October. If you ever need any help with the visibility tool, we have a great resource online with LiveBinders. I'll talk about LiveBinders a little bit later today. But when you go onto LiveBinders, you'll see a blue tab at the top that says Visibility Tool. Underneath that, we have a lot of resources for you, including the information from the webinar that we did last week. You have the PowerPoint, the audio, Q&A posted from that. And because LiveBinders cannot answer every single question you will ever have about Visibility Tool, you can always feel free to email us at tened.assessment@tn.gov. And I'm going to go ahead and hand back up. Right there. All right.
I'm hiding outside the door.
He's listening.
This is a really crazy room because there's not a good place to sit. So it's easier just to sit outside the door and hide and pop in like some kind of jack in the box. Anyway, we're going to talk about course code guidance. And particularly in dealing with course codes, I had the really wonderful privilege. I get to speak now before the attendance conference folks. Some of you are there with me for that. I have to tell you that the attendance conference meets, those are the EIS supervisors, they meet twice a year. They meet in September, a couple of weeks before we do. And they meet in April, usually the first week of the testing window. Those of you who are EIS and testing coordinators know that you don't get to go to that one because we have you a little bit busy that week. Last year, it was the first week of the testing window. It was day 4, and since everything had gone so smoothly with days 1, 2, and 3, I got there, and a former district testing coordinator, Cindy Lawson, is the person who introduced me and got up, and her first words are, "Don't shoot the messenger," which I appreciated very much. And actually, they were very kind. They have been wonderful, and if you need to go home to your EIS supervisor and say thank you, because we threw the EIS provisioning thing at them very last minute, and they stepped up. Our data was cleaner this last year than it has ever been before, and that is you guys' work, and that is their work. And so please say thank you to your EIS supervisor. In the case of some of you sitting here who I happen to know are both of them, tell yourself thank you. You did a very nice job. All right, so what I'm going to do is a much shortened version of what I did with the attendance conference folks, and there is a link at the end of this part of the presentation to the full attendance conference presentation if you want more detail. So the assessment course codes document, it's an Excel workbook that shows you what course codes are being pulled for assessment in 2018-19. It is available on the Nextera admin platform under the Help tab. It is available on LiveBinders as well. It has a page for each administration, grade 2, grade 3 through 8 Gen Ed, grade 3 through 8 Comprehensive, which are the students who require additional support but are still tested on the regular TN Ready assessment. It has pages for TCAP Alt and MSAA. It also has for EOC and even then for the Cambridge courses. I'm not going to show you all of those, and they're not a part of that presentation. They are a part of the attendance conference presentation if you need to see them. I'm going to run over some notes, though, dealing specifically with grades 3 through 8. You cannot schedule students in the same assessment pulled course code twice. So in other words, if you have a 4th grade student and your EIS person is scheduling them in 401 for language arts and in 401 for reading, those 2 codes will run against each other. They will not show up in Visibility Tool, and they will not pull for pre-ID. I'm going to say into Nextera, that's true for EOC as well. You can't double use codes in general. Where we typically see the problem is at grades 3 through 8. Reading codes are retired. They've been retired for at least a couple of years now, so you cannot use those reading codes. If you are going to do some kind of self-contained pullout, make sure that you are using a course code that is not pulled for assessment, but that the student is given the correct general ed course code so that they do pull for assessment. Also, EL students, there has been a change this year. There's been some direction. We're going to be sending some more direction out about this. Actually, Amanda and I have to sit down early on Monday morning when we get back into the office and work on that communication. But with EL students for grades 3 through 8, if a student has a WIDA proficiency of 1 or 2, there is a particular course code that they go in that is grade specific for as English learners. They also need to be in a general ed course code so that they will pull for the TN Ready assessment. The same thing is true for grades 3, for WIDA proficiencies 3 and 4. However, with the WIDA proficiencies of 3 and 4, it is a generic code. It is not grade specific. However, they still need to be in their grade specific code. So grade 6, grade 7, whatever it is, 601, 701, all of those numbers. It's important to remember, we will never pull assessment from a generically graded code. In other words, if it covers grades 3 through 8, it will never pull for assessment. At EOC, we pull by content. Grades 3 through 8, we pull on the grade appropriate code for those students. In fact, let's see, is that the next one? No, we'll talk about that in a second. Here's the really confusing part, and the fact that you can't see it back there probably doesn't make much difference because it's still difficult to see. For those of you who are visual learners, this is going to be the easier way for me to talk about EOC, MSAA, and TCAP Alt. For those of you who are text learners, the next couple of slides have it. So, you have this presentation, or will have this presentation by Monday morning to take a look at. I'm going to talk through it right now, but you have that resource to go back and look at again. Here's the issue. We were discovering, and we worked with special populations and other folks, that we were not getting all of the alt students correctly identified. In some cases, it was the way districts were scheduling students, high school students, particularly if they were block high schools. Some block schools were scheduling them in the alternate assessment codes in the fall and the Gen Ed codes in the spring, which meant they were getting pulled for Gen Ed, but not for alt. There were a number of other kind of odd scheduling pieces. Some of them have to do with the change this year and the addition of the alternate academic diploma, AAD. I'm probably going to, for the rest of this, say AAD, because every time I try and say that, it comes out wrong, and I usually call it the alternate assessment diploma, which it's not. So with that, with the confusion about which order these codes should be used in, how those things are, the confusion at the field on all of this, here's what we're going to do this year. We're going to pull all 10th grade students who have an alt science code, regardless of which one it is. So it can be, oh, my pointer's not working. Anyway, all 3 of those, biology, earth science, physical science, we will pull all of those. regardless if they have that code in fall or in spring, and provision them for the spring TCAP Alt Science. TCAP Alt Science is a field test this year, just like the rest of science is, but it will still be done. It runs from mid-March to May 4th. So we'll poll for all of those students and provision in that manner. You'll get pre-ID labels for all of those students. It's important to note if you have put those students in a gen ed class as well as their least restrictive environment, that is perfectly acceptable. However, that means they're going to show up in Nextera. You will need to mark them in Nextera as student tested alt as their student not tested status. Otherwise, they will come back to you as absent, which you do not want. The same thing is true for MSAA. We will pull all 11th grade students who have one of those 4 codes for English and one of those 4 codes for math. In other words, for English, for math, we'll pull them, whether they are in fall or spring, if they are in 11th grade, because 11th grade is where we test MSAA. And we'll provision those guys for MSAA for you, and that provisioning occurs, I believe, in mid-January. I do not have that specific date, but you do because you have it on your assessment milestones document. Now, I know that is probably as clear as mud as I've explained it. So like I said, you've got this slide right here, and this is a copy of the information that is in the assessment course codes workbook. And then you have these, which are the draft communication about what we're doing, the names of those 3 codes that we have previously used to pull alternate assessment. They're being changed to say alternate academic diploma so that they line up with the rest of the codes. There are some changes coming with that. This is a 2018-19 fix for this particular set of issues. We're going to be giving you more information as we move into 1920, and I think it's going to look a little different. But for 2018-19, this is how this is going to work. And again, like I said, it's in text format in case that's helpful for you. If you have students that are not working on the AAD, they still need to be in 10th grade in one of those science alt course codes if they're an alt student. And in 11th grade, they need to be in the correct alt, ELA, and math so that they are still pulled for TCAP alt science and for MSAA. All right. Important safety tips. Here's the reminder. I said it a little bit ago, but I'm saying it again. Do not put students in 2 of the identical course codes for assessment. They will not pull if you do that. That will come up as an error, and you will wonder, why is that student not there? And that's the reason. Also, service enrollments do not pull for assessment. You're welcome to do secondary service enrollments kinds of things, but we don't pull based on those. We only pull based on primary enrollments. So the primary enrollment in the class is how it gets pulled. Visibility tool obviously is your friend. Amanda told you a lot about that. I don't know about you guys. We heard loud and clear from you, from many of you, about things to fix. I think we got most of what you guys asked for, and I'm really pleased because I think it makes it a much more functional tool for figuring out where your problems are. Last year was helpful. This year is better. All right, alternative schools guidance. Those of you who have an alternative schools with a school number know that last year was not fun. So at one point, you guys may not have all had to deal with it, but at one point you were getting one set of instructions from us and one set of instructions from local finance, and they did not agree. It was kind of like we were playing tug of war and you guys were the rope. And that is not okay. We do not want to do that. So this is the guidance for 2018-19. Students enrolled in an alternative school during the TN Ready 2018-19 can be assessed at their alternative school or at their school of remand or primary school. We don't care. Secondly, for 2018-19, if a student has been remanded from their primary school to an alternative school with a school number, you do not have to move them back to their school of remand for assessment or accountability purposes. We will take care of that. Actually, the accountability folks will take care of that on the back end. You can test them there. You do not have to move them around. That will leave the financial stuff in position so you don't have to fool with it. Hopefully, that is also a better solution than what we had last year for all of this. Any questions? That one's kind of an oddball thing. Or is that just one of those like just giant sigh of relief kind of things?
So who has the academic responsibility for the child? For like, for teachers that look for kids at school.
For teacher student claiming.
Uh-huh.
That is going to be a question we actually, Heather's going to come talk to you a little bit about that. That teacher student claiming question is moving out of assessment and to teachers and leaders this year. So I'm going to be real cautious about answering those questions. I've been answering those questions off and on for a long time, but that's actually moving to teachers and leaders, the folks who do teacher evaluation and are more appropriately the folks who should be working with teacher student claiming. So we'll talk about that a little more later. It's a good question though. What he asked was, who has academic responsibility teacher-wise for TBOS, TSC? All right, student provisioning in Nextera. Last fall, we pushed the big red button and reset everything. That's why I told you need to say thank you to your EIS folks, because they were wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
We got,
Oh, there we go. Back again.
all right.
Pardon me. Let's make sure. There we go. So assessment is driven by data in EIS. I think I figured out why it's doing it. This is not sitting in here right. So I'm going to have to hold it funny, which will just make it even easier to talk to you guys. All right, assessment is now driven by data in EIS. Enrollment, scheduling, demographics, class rosters, all have to be correct in your district SIS so that they move to EIS. EIS, you see the window of the visibility tool to see what is there and is going to be provisioned, and then that moves on to Nextera. Pre-ID and rostering in Nextera, pre-ID labels, all come from that information in EIS. A reminder as well, EdTools is no longer used for cleanup, for demographic data, for completing any kind of assessment ordering. All of that information comes out of EIS. The only function left in EdTools at this point is teacher-student connection, and that will be done by our friends and teachers and leaders. And so they're taking point on that. SDDB is no longer there. It wasn't there last year. It is not there this year. So I will say, if you're a district testing coordinator who's been at this a little while, not having to do SDDB for the last 2 or 3 weeks while school's ending and everything's going on is a real positive. Even more so in TSC, I think. Yes, thank you. People above me made that decision, but I appreciate the applause anyway. But one of the other things, and again, you'll be working with teachers and leaders on TSC, but I believe they will keep the TSC deadline the same as we did last year, which is the last day of the testing window, which is also a huge positive. I always have these pictures of you guys chasing teachers out into the parking lot going, sign it, your instructional availability. All right. Important provisioning change. This is a big deal for grades 3 through 8. It actually is probably not as big a deal because we're on paper for the most part this year. But we are pulling course code rather than assigned grades to give students the correct test. So in other words, if you have a 4th grader but you put them in a 5th grade math class, we will pull them as a 5th grader for math and a 4th grader for the other courses. There is no off-grade testing. I know that caused some issues in 5th through 8th grade online this last year. We're dealing with that. This is in preparation, obviously, as we hope to move forward with online. Pulling on course code means we have no weirdness about where is that kid supposed to be. We're going to trust you. You put the kid in the right class, rather than try to figure out after the fact how we should move the kid around. EIS transfers to Nextera. Some of this is really basic, but this is to fix a problem that we had last year. So some of you guys last year would call me or call one of the folks here, but often me, and say, hey, everything's fine in the visibility tool, but I don't see my data in Nextera. Sound familiar to anyone? Yeah, I see the numbers. And then I would say something to the effect, and then you'd ask the question, should it be there? And I would say, I certainly thought so. Let's wait 24 hours, call me tomorrow morning if it's not there. And I see Michelle nodding at me because I think she and I had this exact conversation. None of us should be saying to you, wait 24 hours, call me again. We should have a consistent process. And so what we've asked Questar, the Nextera folks to do is a particular process. So we're going to be very clear on when data is moved over. So we're not going to have that question. And if your data doesn't get moved, we'll know there's an issue and know to chase it immediately. So here's what's going to happen. Assessment data transfers every day from your SIS to EIS if, and it's not on the slide, the if is if you guys do automatic uploads of extracts. If you're a district that does not do it, it transfers every time you send up an extract. So that's an EIS thing. That's about as much as I know about EIS. Melissa Teed is here today. If you want to talk to Melissa, she knows a lot about it. Assessment data transfers from EIS to Nextera are going to happen every Monday night. That started last Monday, the Monday the 24th, the first day of this week. So your data transferred as of 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, transferred over to Nextera. You can't see it yet, though. For this first week, it will not show up until Monday morning. You will see it Monday morning, 10/1. And the reason we gave them a week the first time is they wanted to QA the data or do quality assurance work on the data and make sure they got it right. It's a little like I have a 17-year-old and a 13-year-old. It's like, did you finish your homework? Yes. Really? Did you really finish your homework? Yes. Did you check in your folder? Oh. You guys know how that goes. Anyway, this is what we're asking them to do on this first week to make everything come through. From this point on, beginning on the 1st, this coming Monday, this is the schedule we'll be working on. So we'll move data. They'll pick it up from an API point. Basically, our district technology folks send it up to the API. Questar picks it up and loads it into their system. The API also at that point will generate new data so that you'll see it in the visibility tool on Tuesday morning. Anything that you have in by 4 p.m. Central Time Monday will be in the visibility tool on Tuesday morning. Amanda talked to you guys about the EIS performance thing inside Orion, inside single sign-on. So if there's any kind of delay in that, you can easily see where they're working, where it is in work. That actually is going to show up here in early October when they get that added in. So it moves Monday night. You see it in Visibility Tool Tuesday morning. You will see it in Nextera Wednesday morning by 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So for those of you on this end of the state, that is, I am not out of bed yet, right? That's 5 a.m. your time. Although there are some of you, and I feel sad, who are in the office at 5 a.m., and we appreciate how hard you're working, but please, 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 please get some sleep. Anyway, you will have that information each Wednesday. So by Wednesday morning in your office, if you're not seeing something, that's when you need to go ahead and contact. We're fully aware. We're going to get to that system. But this way, there is no question about, is it done 24 hours? Was it done 48 hours ago? Was it done 72 hours ago? Did they have to wait time? We want to make sure that you guys clearly know when you're going to get data. So that's the process we're using. The big blue box is just to remind you that EIS data transfers happen when you use an extract. They don't just happen by magic. All right. The final EIS transfer of data, and this isn't actually to Questar, this is to us, for demographic information for the CDF, or comprehensive data file. That's the huge file with all of your score and information and demographics. That will happen on the last day of the test window, which is December 14th. And nothing changes after that point. So you need to make sure that you have grades, genders, code AB, all of the demographics that you want to make sure are correct need to be correct by December 14th. We'll be provisioning students on the basics, if that makes any sense. The basics that we've always done, the name, USID, all of those pieces. Demographic information is not going to go bouncing back and forth between us and Questar. It will primarily reside in EIS and be pulled at the end of the window in order that we can do this. So, new students, you got to enroll new students as quickly as possible into your district SIS so we can provision them for testing. Do not wait around. The last poll for EIS data, like we did in the name that date thing, will be Monday, November 12th. So again, everything that you've got done by 4 p.m. Monday, November 12th will be pulled. You'll see it in the visibility tool on Tuesday, November 13th. On Wednesday, November 14th, you will see all of your students in Nextera ready to go for testing. And you're going to say to me, but what happens if I don't have all of my students at that point? What happens if somebody is missing? That's why the next slide exists. So, provisioning students after November 14th. We have taken away your ability to hand enter students into Nextera. We were having reporting issues and problems coming from double entry and all that. You are going to contact our office. We are hiring a contractor in particular to do entry for those students and to check things to make sure that we have everything accurate and correct to hopefully slow down some of the reporting issues. We want to be the people that are backstopping you and taking care of you in that process. You will not call Questar and ask them to add people. You will call us. And yes, ma'am.
So I'm a private school.
Yes, ma'am. We'll talk about private schools. That's an excellent question. Private schools are going to operate on a different procedure. We're going to be loading. You're going to be loading information to us. We're going to talk about it later today. But there is a procedure for it. But we are not hand entering students from private or from public schools at this point. So a reminder though, it's really important. You're going to want to make sure as much as possible that you have your students corrected EIS and uploaded by that November 12th date. That will make this much easier so that all we're dealing with for you guys and for us is those oddball kids, the kids who showed up at a weird time, kids who showed up from out of state, and then the every once in a while student that just will not load and no one can figure out why. And we'll work with you guys to make sure those are taken care of. All right, so in a nutshell, student scheduling data must be correct in the SIS in order to generate test orders for test provisioning. Correct scheduling has to have the correct course code in order to trigger the assessment process. And there's the link to the attendance conference PowerPoint. So, supplemental material orders. This is going to sound like I'm going out of order, but I'm going to tell it I'm doing this on purpose. So, we heard you loud and clear. We are not calling them AMOs anymore. I know. I wasn't bothered by it, but I don't deal with annual measurable objectives. So it didn't cross over. It wasn't crossing the streams for me or for Questar, but we heard you guys loud and clear. We have insisted with Questar. They are called supplemental orders now. You are going to, if you are missing a particular paper material and need more of something, you'll place a supplemental order. That'll be done by your district testing coordinator. It is going to be, the window for that for fall will open on November 15th. You should be receiving your paper materials, and we'll talk about that in a second. Paper materials for fall should arrive on November 14th. And we're going to provide more information on exactly how this is going to work, but let me be clear about one of the pieces we want for this process. We are bypassing Tier 1 customer service at Questar, and you will be giving us and Questar information that will go directly to their operations. It will cut down on the time, and it will also make sure that the clarity is better as far as getting the right thing ordered for you guys. So we're working with them on that. We didn't have it completely fleshed out and decided we would rather tell you in the October 18th webinar than we would tell you something now and then have to apologize on October 18th and say, no, we didn't really mean that, we meant this. So we'll have details for that, but that's how this process is going to work. If you have a student that is being tested on paper, and there are really 3 different reasons they could be on paper. They could be on a Braille form, they could be on a paper form, or they could be have a unique accommodation request. In all 3 of those cases, you need to go into Nextera and set an accommodation for that student. When you set the accommodation, there's a tab in accommodations that says Modified Test Format, and under that, there is a place where you check for that student to say that's what they're taking. That tells the folks there that they're going to have a scanned document rather than a computer document coming through, and so there's no confusion in dealing with that. So that brings up paper test ordering. Here's paper test ordering. It's going to work differently than it has previously. We are not going to send you a PDF via EdTools. We are actually having Questar print paper materials, both paper and large print, so regular size and large print, for students who need it. Please do not use paper test ordering to suddenly decide that you're not going to computer test. That is not acceptable. We'll kick it back at you. When we get an order, suddenly some school needs 100 tests. These are for specific kinds of issues. So if a student requires oral presentation, in other words, they require text-to-speech with the computer, you have background to know that the computerized voice does not work for them, then you would order a paper test for them. If they have a visual or hearing impairment, particularly if they have a visual impairment that the 300% magnification that's on the computer will not solve, then obviously order a large print. Or if they have some kind of issue with screens where they cannot interact with the screen, you would order a regular paper copy. Yes, ma'am?
Okay. I have a very unique situation where I have a student that needs the large print along with assistive technology.
Okay.
Yeah, not work this last year and got it timely when the test window was already open. It was use one or the other.
So we'll have you talk with, we have a new special populations person, Leslie Hoffman. We have a Hassman and a Hoffman, so in my brain they just kind of get slurred together. Leslie's only been with us a couple of weeks, but specifically, let's have you contact Leslie and talk through those things. With that, we'll talk about unique accommodation requests, which is probably where that's going to fall under, particularly there. So if a student is incarcerated, obviously incarcerated students are quite difficult to get onto a computer for a variety of important reasons. There is also a special subcategory of this that aren't incarcerated, but because they have shown the tendency to hack computers, have some kind of court order where they cannot legally use a computer. These are the children who are going to own us in 20 years, but for the time being, they get to test on paper, and that is perfectly acceptable to do that with them. Also, homebound students, the platform will be closing at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, so the instructions in the TAM about taking a laptop to them is fantastic if you can do that during the platform open hours. If you cannot, order a paper test for those homebound students. Test those homebound students on paper. Now, here comes the really important thing. You do not have to submit a unique accommodation request for paper. You are just going to go ahead and order the paper that you need that is appropriate. Again, like I said, if you give us some crazy order where we get 200 or 300 paper, we're going to know that you're playing a game and we're going to talk to you. But legitimately, we need you guys to order what you actually need and get it to you. So the deadline for ordering paper is today. I have been joking about this all week because I sit there and I point the little pointer and it's like, Mom can't wait to tell Jackson it's today, and just watch people like zip towards their computers. Please take care of that by close of business today. We will get you out of here in plenty of time to do that or to make whatever call you need to do. The reason I started with the supplemental orders is this. If you need to make a supplemental order for paper because you don't have everything you need, we understand, and that's why that process is in place. You do not have to submit a unique accommodation request except for a unique accommodation. Unique accommodations are something that do not appear in the normal list of IEP 504, that they are something that is unusual and specific to a particular student situation. You cannot have, by the way, a unique accommodation for an entire class, because at that point, not unique. Unique is a particular issue for a particular kid. The question that you just asked, where you have a kind of unusual situation, that's exactly what it's for. Those are really the only things you're going to contact our office about to get permission for. We're going to ask you to do that, and we'll work with you. We want to work in the best interest of the student. One of the things I really appreciate about both Danette and Heather is their leadership in that and saying we're going to do what's best for kids. And one, get a good score, but also take care of these kids as we're working with them. So, in particular with that, juvenile detention centers are an issue. Danette has been working with the juvenile detention center folks. There's been some changes in that, so I'm going to let you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. I would like to say, one, I am very, very excited to have gone to the very, very dark side. From the district testing coordinator to the State Department. But please, before I start with the JDCs, I want you to know we want you to contact us. Our job, our goal is to make your life easier and this better for the students. And that's a promise that we're going to do our best to keep for you. So just want you to know that. And one of the things, you know, I've been in this position as a district testing coordinator for 8 years, so I know exactly, maybe not as long as some of you, but quite a while, and I've been through the last several years. I won't mention all the unique events that we've had, but just want you to know that we're here for you and we want to support you. So the juvenile detention centers, okay, I'm trying not to move too much. With Tennessee Code annotated 49-63023, we have been told that we are educating incarcerated students. And part of that education goes along with the testing if they're enrolled in those tested courses. So we have worked with the Juvenile Detention Center at the State Department and their consultants, and we hopefully have come up with a process that will make this very seamless for you. We are going to work with the juvenile detention centers within the districts that they are in. So for example, Putnam County, where I am coming from, has a juvenile detention center. Our attendance supervisor works very closely with them. We have hired 2 retired teachers who go in twice a week at 6 hours each week to do the education of these students. So we have asked those juvenile detention center coordinators to reach out to the district testing coordinators of that district that they are in. And in Putnam County, we have students from White County, Clay County, Overton County, etc., from all the Upper Cumberland. Putnam County will be responsible for ordering the paper-based test for all students that are in the juvenile detention center. So if you are the district testing coordinator and have a juvenile detention center, you will be responsible for ordering those paper bags. Now, the juvenile detention center coordinators have already been notified. They're very aware of this process and they know they have to reach out to you. We all have transient populations, but there are probably more transient population than the juvenile detention center. So they're going to do their best to give you a number of how many will be in there. And then they may have to come to you during operational and say, I may need 1 or 2 more copies of test booklets for Algebra 1, Integrated 1. So we will work with them to make sure that they get tested. Now, how they get tested, something I want to keep in mind, since we're using retired teachers, we're obviously going to have them probably be the test administrators, and they need to go to test security training. Okay? If you don't have that, hopefully a counselor or somebody that goes into there will do the testing for you. Since they're doing paper-based, the answer docs will be assigned to the district and the school of remand. So even though they're being tested in Putnam, they'll be assigned to White County. They'll be assigned to Overton County, wherever that their school of remand is. So they will go back to those districts. But Putnam will take care of testing, shipping, etc., if that makes sense. How many in here have a juvenile detention center in their area? So can I answer any questions for you all? You want to see?
Where are the materials kept? Are they keeping them there, or how are we?
They're going to be sent. They'll be shipped to you. So then, when it's time, you will get them the material.
So they're able, like I'm able to give them to keep the duration of testing, or is this a daily thing when we're going back?
I would probably assign them to your test administrators, because they will have, whoever is gone through the training and be your test administrator, they will have signed off on the confidentiality. They will know that they are secure testing materials, etc., etc. I would keep them with those people. Yes, ma'am.
extra facility, but this does not apply to the
Me-
not part of
I would probably, since your attendance coordinator is probably the one directly working with them, I would probably text or email them and say, will you check with the JDC and see if they have any students in there right now that, or possibly could. But you're gonna get overage as a district anyways, so you're gonna have overage. Or, yes, ma'am. That's why I'm asking you, it probably best to go ahead and email your attendance clerk and see if they'll reach out to them. Okay, any other questions? This last slide I want to show you is the contact information of the regional consultant for the JDC. These people are very well aware and can assist you. They have been working with their JDC centers. So please, on the PowerPoint, make sure you know who your consultant is if there's any issues with the juvenile detention centers. And I apologize for the timing of all this, but we started working with the JDC, was it last week? 2 weeks?
Week and a half, basically.
About a week and a half ago with their contact saying, okay, how do we do this? So with this all being new, we're all new and we're hoping that this is gonna be a good process, but not, we'll just make adjustments. Nobody more flexible than educators. I think that was somehow ingrained in us. Oh, one last thing before I go. At 10 o'clock, when we go to break, we will need you to get off the Wi-Fi, the public site. They are going to shut it down, and then after you come back from break, you'll have to get on and use the login information so it will speed up for everybody, because we know it's very slow right now in the public.
All right. So I want to talk about some best practices for shipping. So the number one best practice for shipping, golly, that's hard to say without making a mess. The number one is not to go out behind the liquor store and get boxes and overpack them and send them to you, because that's what it looked like in spring, right? Or perhaps that an elephant in a UPS uniform sat on your box at some point and blew the side. Some of you guys sent us pictures. It was fascinating. So we saw the first one, it's like, wow, that's weird. There's one particular county, I cannot remember who it is, who for some reason always has trouble. It's like their UPS guy is a problem child and is throwing stuff around. But so that was my first assumption when I saw it, and then we started seeing it from a number of you guys. Questar and TDOE are well aware of this issue, and so we are working with them. We're going back to the shipping system that they used for year one, not sending it to schools. It will still be sent to districts, but that quality of shipping that you got that first year, not the quality of shipping that you got last year. So specifically, I want to show you these boxes. And these boxes are really kind of awesome. They're looking a little beat up, but you know why they're looking beat up? They actually got soaking wet on day 2 of this trip. And they've got stuff in them. They are still holding together. I'm not trying to tear it apart, but it actually is a good, high quality, solid box. The information that they've got in them, they have all of the correct packing slips now. You have a divider sheet for this fall. If you're getting Braille or paper forms, you're going to have a instruction specifically that will have a divider sheet. You put the non-scorables at the bottom of the box, put a divider sheet over it, put the scoreable materials in the correct envelopes on top of it, and send it all back together. This year we have gray labels, so you in the back cannot possibly see them, but they're gray. That will be for this will be the size of box for this fall because we're not sending that many materials to you, so we don't want to send you huge monster boxes. You will not get any boxes that require, a MMA fighter to carry them like we had last year. Some of you guys had some boxes that you may have a herniated disc thanks to trying to move around. Again, we fully acknowledge that that was not optimal. It was not well done. I am working with the Vice President of Operations at Questar, Jim McMahon, to make sure that we get things done right. If you have boxes left over from last year, from when we did the mass shipment of boxes to make up for it, hang on to them. You're welcome to use them. If you got extra tape, hang on to the tape and use it. You're welcome to use it. That was to make up for the problems there. Questar happily did that and jumped on it when we asked them to do it. I am also going to be, this is one of those things where I was sitting in a planning meeting with our assistant commissioner and we're talking about shipping and she leans over to me and she goes, you're going to Missouri, right? Missouri is where they're going to be doing the majority of the printing and shipping, and so I'm going to be on the ground when they are in the process of doing that. I am your representative. I worked warehouse a long time ago. I don't want to pick up any more boxes, but that's the way it goes. I told the new DTCs at new TDC boot camp last week that in some ways, one of the things you've taken on when you become a DTC is you're a warehouse manager, right? Is that any surprise to any of you who have done this for a little while? But we're going to do our level best to make sure this is easier than it was last year and makes more sense as far as all that goes. All right, let me quickly talk about CAB. So CAB is being decoupled. Yes, it sounds like CAB is breaking up with somebody, and that's actually kind of what's going on. Because of our concerns that CAB was sharing server and database information with the operational and practice test, and that was potentially one of the issues that we saw in spring, we insisted to Questar that they decouple the two of them. So it has its own servers, its own database system. That explains why it's taken so long to get CAB back up, and it'll be up on October 15th. But in doing that, we're trying to do everything we can to reduce risk to the operational test. So that's why it's taken so long for CAB to get there. All right. The CAB in practice will still have TEI items. TEI stands for Technology Enhanced Items. When Sandy comes and talks to you, she'll talk a little bit about that process. Because we're actually working to simplify the operational test, so some of those kinds of more oddball items have been pulled off, again, to protect the operational test and to make sure that it runs smoothly. And with that, we have reached almost dead on 10 o'clock, right? It is time for a break. So we're going to take about 15 minutes. There is food waiting for you out there, something to drink. Restrooms, I think, are scattered throughout the building, but there's some back towards the back, that way. We'll see you guys back in about 15 minutes. I'll give you a 2-3 minute warning. Please remember to go ahead and get off the Wi-Fi now so that we can get the Wi-Fi fixed. Mr. Schneider? Good question. It's going to be It was a good question. I'm not trying to dismiss you. It's me.
It goes into part of it, so they're not well, so what happens to get, so are you telling us that like our 11th graders, we did bring in our old course but they're not all the academic, they're not from that program that's
If you so they're changing the name.
So as long as we put them in, I just want to make sure you all understand that those courses
No. Just, they're fine. They will, where they are, if you've got them in those, if you've got them in one of those codes. Laura is, so Lloyd Morris now.
Oh, well, that's
I know,
right.
it's just like,
Sorry, I've been around too long.
she's a professor. So she's full time. She lives, up there. So I think that's what she's doing. Yep. So Leslie, but she seems really good. But she isn't recently, yes, but background definitely. No, she was with us. Yeah, in July, which means she would have any kind of meeting stuff for this next one round. She would
Okay.
Morning, how are you doing, sir? All right. What? Yes, ma'am. We'll talk about, well, we don't take a long time with it because it takes Amanda, she's a good resource for that. ProBook, that's not me.
Let me ask you. In my mind, that's what I was talking about. He went to the tent. Okay, Steve.
We'll start up in a couple of minutes.
If they're able to separate. That's why I put that first, so that you know that process is good. Yes, ma'am. One, All right, and I changed mics, but I'm not sure we can. This one's doing all kinds of weird fuzzy feedback, but it's solid, so it's not jumping around like that one was.
Okay. I'm
So-
next, right?
Yeah, you're next. We don't really have any parking lot things that I've been given, so we're just gonna pick up right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
You probably need to share the
Okay. All right. If you want to get on the wireless, wow, I changed mics because I was having problems, but of course now it's doing all kinds of stuff. How are we doing back there? Are you guys hearing me okay in the back? Canada is ignoring me. We. Greetings, people of Canada. Can you hear me?
Obviously not there.
Okay, that part of the way back Canada is just having too much fun back there. Oh goodness. All right. So if you would like to get back on the Wi-Fi, look for Civic Vendors, and then the password is holiday 2018, all lowercase. Civic Vendors, holiday 2018. All right, now let me check. Those of you at the back of the room, can you hear me? Yes, okay, Canada is back with us. All right. So, Danette is going to take over at this point and talk to you about Nextera. I am the one who called this Advanced Nextera. Actually, what is really good is this is District Testing Coordinator Experience Nextera. And so, hopefully this will be really helpful to you if you have any dealings with the Nextera platform for practice or operational.
Okay. One of the things that, you know how as a district testing coordinator, you can't see what the BT sees, and you definitely cannot see what a test administrator sees? So I volunteered last year as district testing coordinator to test homeschool students. My building testing coordinators were ecstatic. And the reason I volunteered to do that is because I wanted to see what they saw and have to do what they do. And so a few of these slides come from that experience. A few of these slides come from the Tennessee Ambassadors and the ALAC group. So, and then one or two of the slides come through just experience. So I want to share these with you. And Canada will have to hopefully use their, and probably Ohio somewhere, we'll have to use the PowerPoint on your laptop. But we're going to start with the CSV file that's available and uses for that CSV file. So if I go to the Student tab, and on the bottom of that first page of the Student tab, on the bottom right below the pages, this little arrow here says Student Download Excel. Instead of flipping through several pages of student files, since there's only 10 on a page, you can download that CSV file and use your filters to do all kinds of checks. One, to see verify you have all your students. You can also verify if they're in the right courses. You can do a comparison to the visibility tool to see if they match. And if they don't match, who's missing. You can go ahead and check content areas. You can also check accommodations and accessibilities that have been assigned because they print out on the CSV file. So if somebody's missing, or send your schools their students and let them check it to see if anybody is missing anything prior to the start of the window, which is going to save a lot of time. So there's all kinds of things that you can do with it, contact USID, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a great way to use that CSV file. Test status, setting the test status. There's a couple ways to do this. And one of the things, if you had reports that said failed attemptedness on your ISRs this past spring, there's several reasons for that to have happened. One is the student did not attempt, and no answers were submitted, and nothing was marked as student test status, therefore it came out as failed attemptedness. Okay? So I'm gonna take you through a process of making sure that your building testing coordinators will check. And if you're like me last year, one of my schools, I had to make sure that they did this also. So I learned this process from them. Under the student view or student tab, you can hit view. And when you do, you will see up at the top with all their information, edit. When you hit edit, then you see all the tests that they're available or they're scheduled to take. I can automatically, if a student is no longer enrolled, I can hit that main edit and go to set scoring option under this tab right here, and I can set the student status. I have to make sure that one, I always hit submit and I always hit save, because if I don't, I'm repeating the whole process again. Okay? The other way is if they're absent for a subpart or they're not scheduled, you can go to the subpart, hit set, and it will bring you up to the same screen as you would if you were doing the whole test. And you would set the scoring option as not scored, and then the reason. So here's what I'm talking about. So once I hit those, this is the screen I see. I'm going to set the scoring option. This is where we do our RIs also. I hit not tested, and then I have to put a reason in. Reason, absent, not enrolled, not scheduled, medically exempt, residential facility, student is assigned to test the alt, and student did not submit tests. So I'm going to select that choice. So I'm either doing it through that content area, or I'm doing it through the subtext, or for the subtext. I hit submit, and then what shows up under the test, when I hit that big edit button at the top, it'll tell you that the edit status is absent. So that student then did not test English 1. He was absent for all, or she was absent for all 3 subparts. Okay? 4 subparts last year. If I do the subpart test down at the bottom, it will show me that they were absent. This is a great way to take attendance when a test administrator is doing a session for you. Because if you don't track absences, you will not know who needs to do makeups, and be taking them in order really is critical in keeping up with attendance. So this is one way to do that. I can go in and change if they come back to take it. So I just change it to and get rid of the non-tested status, and then they can go ahead and test. But these have to be marked, otherwise they're going to score them as they attempted it and just got 0 right, because nothing was answered. Okay? Second one, and Mark talked to you about best practices for shipping. One of the things, and those in the room that know me very well, I am very much OCD to the extreme. And I am also, I'm a perfectionist. So several years ago, we lost a box. Well, we didn't. A box we shipped was lost. And so, in doing that, I got the phone call. We shipped the course in May, and I got the phone call late July. Okay? Yes, late July, and I had slept several days before that, since then. And they said, we're missing so-and-so's box. And I'm going, oh, well, and guess who wasn't in the office? The people at school, right? So what I've learned to do, and thank goodness I did it at this time, I learned to use the tracking code, the slip that I peeled off and the bottom piece I kept, or the one next to it that Mark showed you, depending upon what you received, And because of that, I would mark, when I put the tracking labels on, I did not let the schools do it, OCD, I would mark Allgood Elementary 1 of 15, 2 of 15, 3 of 15 on the bottom part of the tracking slip. Then I would say, as Putnam County, district box 16 of 480, 17 of 480, 18 of 480. Because when they called me that day, I was able to go to my tracking slips and give them the tracking code. That was the only saving grace to find that box. Only saving grace. We have 5 boxes out there now, since May, still not found for the state. 5. Because we could not produce the tracking code number. And when you call, the vendor calls the shipping vendor and we can't give them a tracking code, they have no idea what to do. No idea what to do. Because I was able to give them the tracking code, they found that the box was incorrectly delivered, was able to pull that box and ship it, and it finally got scored. Okay? Please, if you don't do anything, if you're in this long enough, at some point, until we're all online, there'll be a box, and it could get lost. Okay? So, and I've also, one year, I think FedEx had an accident, and some of our boxes were on there. So you never know what's going to happen to the boxes. Difference between classes and test administration. Here's another issue that, as a district testing coordinator, my building TCs and my test administrators really struggled. Classes. That is where, when you did the update to EIS last Monday at 4 o'clock, and it goes into the Nextera platform, here's where the upload goes into the class area. Okay, so all your course codes, all your teachers, all your students are in that class section. You can add students, well, not this year, we will add students, but you can then edit students. You can, if you have pull-out classes, you can create your pull-out classes through the class tab. Can I do the same thing in test administration? No. Only in class, under the class tab. Test administration is for this. Test administration is only for the administration of the test, whether it's practice, classroom assessment builder, or operational. That's the only thing that you can do for them from there. However, that is where I get my access codes. That is where access codes are changed. And that's where I can also track individual students, their progress. If they started a test, if it wasn't submitted, or when it was submitted, and that's where I could track. Last year, at my largest high school, I lived for the last 5 days of testing on the test administration tab. Because if I knew a student didn't submit but had finished that test, I needed to do a cash recovery or tell my IT department to do a cash recovery for that student. This is where you track this. Okay? This is the easiest place to track. Because it will tell you exactly where that student is. Also, if you put in a not tested code, it will tell you. Okay? So let's go back. Mark's been very good at scavenger hunts and quizzes. Here's yours under Advanced Nextera. Not enrolled. Tell me what that means. No longer enrolled in the school. Good job. Or district. Okay? Not enrolled. This is probably another confusing piece that I've seen a lot, especially in my district with building testing coordinators. So what is the difference then in not scheduled? They're not scheduled for that course. I do not use not enrolled when they're actually not scheduled and they're still in my school. That is done a lot. Okay? Not scheduled. They're no longer in the school and or district. Not scheduled. Nope, sorry. Really confusing now. I'm out. Pull that back. Okay. So not scheduled means that they're not scheduled to take that assessment. They're not scheduled in that course. So if they're mistakenly pulled, they'd be not scheduled because they're still in your school. If they're not enrolled, they're no longer in your school and or district. Okay? One of the things, and this is a screenshot of my computer, one of the things that I kept bugging Mark on was, this is checklists, but you can't click on it. And I would love for my test administrators to have the checklists or the building TCs instead of making all these copies. So I'm going to keep it updated for you. Next week, all the checklists will be in for district testing coordinator, for building TCs, for test administrators. When you hit that link, you're gonna get the checklist. Okay? The other one is this important information. Last year it had some, but I don't even know if I ever read it. Okay? We're going to keep that updated for you. So in this case, there's one message that we want to make very, very clear because you're going to get asked by your teachers and your admin, school admin, etc. And the question is, are the practice tests aligned to standards? Are they old ones that we shouldn't even worry about? Yes, they are aligned to current standards. Yes, they are aligned to current standards. However, I didn't use but. I said, however, the practice test has all item types on them. Not all item types will be on the operational test. Does that make sense? Practice is the practice. We want them to be able to see all the different item types. But not all item types will be on the operational. Because somebody during operational will say, well, they said they didn't have that item type. They may not have. That's the clarification right now that's up there. So everybody that logs in will be able to see that message. The other one that I want to keep up to date for you, and I'll do my best not to do what I've already done, is miss a date for you. The important dates under test administration. That was blank last year, and I'm thinking, why is that tab there? There's nothing there. Well, found out I can edit. Okay, so I'm going to try to do my best to keep you updated. Each month, we'll put up the important dates for you. Instead of looking at that milestone document, which I think is about 12 pages, and doesn't make sense on some of it, I'm going to make it easy for you and put the dates here. So October 1st, Monday, the practice tests open up. Students should appear in Nextera. And then it tells you to pull from that point on. Every Monday, 4 o'clock, we'll pull from your SIS into EIS. By Wednesday, 6 a.m., 5 a.m. Central Time, and I hope you all are still in bed, they'll show up in Nextera. Okay? Then, on the 23rd is the online verification test that I'm sure Mark has already spoke to, and so has Dr. Peltier. And then the 31st, the tabs should be posted and where they'll be posted. Okay? The only date that I forgot was the Classroom Assessment Builder opens up the 15th of October. And I think that's now on the home page, but I'll put it in when I remove the September stuff and put the November dates in for you. Okay, let's do one more quiz. Proctor codes. When do you use, or your building TCs need to use proctor codes? Say again, sir? When the test is paused. Anytime a student's test is paused, they must have the TA or the building TC needs to come in and log in the proctor code. Should the proctor code, if it's used, be changed? Daily. Exactly right. Please change it daily. Who can change it? DTC and BTC, the only two people who can change it. The DTC can see every school's proctor code. The building testing coordinator can only see theirs. But once it's out, treat it like a secure test material. It has to be changed. Please, because it's secure test material, don't let that code, don't let the TA leave that code laying around. Students will have more access than you ever wanted to give them. Okay? Any questions? Yes, ma'am. Good question. I am assuming you know what happens. I don't think that will be changed. Just knowing the little bit I've learned over the last 5 weeks. And it's probably something we don't want them to change. Just because there could be, well, thank you, Kevin. Other things can happen. Okay. I would probably have them maybe turn whatever, but that's a good reason why you need to change it. Okay? Great reason why it should be changed. Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, and with along those lines with protecting the proctor password, also protect your access codes. Access codes should not be written on login tickets. Particularly, it should not be written all 3 subparts on the same ticket. Because you know what's going to happen. I'm done. Going to the next one. Woo! I can get all of my testing done in like 30 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Don't put the access code on the tickets. Also, the access codes can be edited, but they're randomly generated, so you probably don't need to do that unless you have some kind of security issue. All right. Here we go. Are you ready? We're going to do a little bit of a scavenger hunt with the TAM. So if you've got a copy of the TAM with you, grab it and take a look at it right now. Some of you still have some copies of TAMs. We'll give you just a couple minutes if you want to go grab your TAMs. Let me check and make sure with my crew out here. Hang on just a moment. So a reminder, if you were testing this fall, we went ahead and printed TAMs for your schools. Now, your schools. Now, we didn't base it on this fall's information because we didn't have that information. So I did a search and figured out who tested in the fall of 2016, who tested in the fall of 2017, took that larger of those 2 numbers, and then we did one for every 20 tests. So some of you, there is a box over there. One group has 4 boxes. I think that's Madison. Lucky. Yeah. The Knox gets the prize with 15 boxes worth of TAMs that they took away. Lori was like, why are you doing this to me? But we have those available for you. If you do not have a TAM and would like one for right now, we have extras here for this, just for this. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate the help, sir. So if you would, raise your hand if you need a TAM, please.
Is it the one that was on the
It is. If you've already downloaded it, then you can use that as well. It's the one that's on that is already up on Nextera and on LiveBinders. By the way, just a reminder with LiveBinders, Amanda's going to be here early this afternoon to talk about LiveBinders and to give you some specifics. But if you're ever hunting for LiveBinders and can't remember the address because it's one of those weird web addresses, if you'll go to Google and put in TDOE LiveBinders, you can type assessment as well, but it will go ahead, TDOE LiveBinders alone, we're the first link that shows up in Google.
where is the TAM on LiveBinders? I found it under Nextera.
It's under, I believe it's under Nextera, yeah.
Go to Nextera.
You can also be on the Nextera admin. Well, it's on the Nextera admin.
So Nextera, and go to help.
Under help is one place, is a quick place you can find it. I do not remember where it is on LiveBinders. I will give you a LiveBinders secret. There's a search box on LiveBinder that you can type in what you're looking for, and it will pull up those particular documents. It's really quite nice. All right. So some of you are online, some of you are on paper. Either way works good for what we're doing right here. Thank you very much. One of the things that's really nice is having a staff of people that work together. So like we have something happen like this and everybody jumps in. It's really nice having that environment. We have a fantastic team. So here's the scavenger hunt. Number one, we've already done that. We've made sure you were properly caffeinated. You're putting on your thinking caps. How long is a DTC expected to store the testing code of ethics and security procedures forms that you get from your schools? 12 months is the correct answer. Where do you find that? So I have Diane's being helpful over here. Under security. She's not right. She's not right. Bridge 31 is one place. It's on the bottom of each of those forms that in that section. There's about 10 pages worth of forms there. They're all together. Each one of those forms has the amount of time that you need to hang on to it. All right. So, where do I find examples of materials that need to be covered or removed? What page?
Anybody else, just to make sure.
Anybody else need a TAM?
We have plenty.
We have plenty. What'd you say? 14. That is correct. It is the top of page 14. All right. So you'll notice on this page that this is a list of things. Here's the deal. My hobby, the thing that I do for fun, is not testing. The thing that I do for fun is I collect and play board games. A lot of board games. Some of you guys have seen the pictures when I posted them and other things. It's kind of ridiculous. But in the board gaming world, we have people that we call rules lawyers. Those are the people that you play the board game with that want to grab the rules the whole time and are looking stuff up. They want to argue about stuff point by point by point. We also call those people not fun to play with. You guys have some rules lawyers, teachers, and test administrators out there when it comes to this whole question of what do you put on the walls, what do you not put on the walls. And so they look at a list like this and they go, it's not on the list. However, we have included the lovely language that says may include but not limited to. It's actually in italics and bold because we didn't want anyone to miss that. You also notice the second from the bottom in that list, it notes that there is that student-created work that specifically references Tennessee standards. We had some folks out there who thought it would be fine if the student created the work and they didn't, but they posted it up there that had information that might be helpful on it. The basic rule is actually on page 13 on the page beforehand. And I'm paraphrasing here, but it essentially says anything that advantages a student needs to be covered or removed. Now, you're going to have to make some of the calls on that. We're happy to help you in the process of doing that. You might want to talk to your content folks because in some cases, a teacher or a test administrator will ask you a question and reference some kind of curriculum piece that because of your role you don't know. Again, let's work in a team. Our content folks can help out with that to say, yeah, that isn't a big deal, or no, that is a big deal. It directly applies to the standards that could be tested. So we gave you guys a lot of freedom, and in general, that was a very good thing. We're no longer, the elementary school no longer looks like it's covered in brown paper, like we're getting ready to wrap it up and send it off to someone. However, at the same time, there are folks that have taken advantage of that in some unhealthy kinds of ways. And we want to make sure that we are not advantaging any one particular student and having an equitable assessment across the state. All right, next one. Where do I go to see the test proctor version of the Testing Code of Ethics and Security Procedures? What page? 30. That is correct. Each of those you'll notice there is one for each role: building testing coordinator, a test administrator, and test proctor. That is thanks to the hard work of your assessment logistics advisory committee. Those folks helped us put these things together. Here's the reason we're doing these. We made them as a suggestion in the spring. Dr. Peltier came from Florida using these kinds of documents. They're really good. Here's what happened this summer. I'm at an item review. One of our DTCs from the middle part of the state grabs me and stops me and says, "Thank you guys so much for posting that." We used them. I had a teacher, test administrator, that refused to give up her cell phone, refused to stop texting on her cell phone because it wasn't about the test. Nobody had trained her otherwise. That's, again, paraphrasing what she said. She said, at that point, I pulled out the form that she had signed that specifically says no cell phone. And her response was, "Well, that's not fair." But at that point, because it was specific, she could deal with doing discipline and appropriate reprimand and all the things that go with it because they signed off on something specific right there in front of them. These forms are going to give you that ability to do that kind of discipline, and people are more likely to look a little bit at what they're signing. Some people just sign stuff, right? But you can hold them, as you train them, you can clearly hold them responsible for these particular things. Now, you'll note that may include, but not limited to, line as a part of each of these, because you're going to have some local policies as well that are not a part of these. These cover state policies. You're welcome to let your folks know you've been trained on this as well. It may not be on the form, but this is part of the training. Document, document, document as you're doing those things. Who should give written statements in the case of a potential breach of testing security? Page 22. Are you guys cheating by looking ahead in the PowerPoint? That's a possibility. Heather's gonna give you a tip on it. Well, actually, she didn't do it today. She let you guys alone. So it's all parties involved. It is page 22, including children, if necessary. So let me give you an example. Here we go. So in a Middle Tennessee district, a couple of years ago, they were testing in a gym. They were testing multiple EOCs all at the same time with paper stuff. They were kind of taking them in and out in shifts and had them divvied up. So they had a table with the tests on them set up. One of the teachers grabbed the test, stuffed it down his pants, which even as I try and do it, seems like a very uncomfortable choice. Went to the restroom and sat in the restroom and photographed the test. He came back, he dropped it, he got a different one. Back down the pants, and off we go again. He was caught. Yay! He is no longer teaching. Yay! Okay? However, we didn't have to interview kids for that. That has nothing to do with kids. We didn't have to nullify any kids' scores. That has nothing to do with students. That's an adult breach of security, and that's okay. On the other hand, we did have a teacher a few years back who decided that the kids weren't getting the math formulas she thought they deserved. So she gave them little baggies with jelly beans with extra math formulas in them. At that point, we need a statement from the students because we need to know, what did you see, what happened. You also need a statement but you need written statements from folks, and you need to do it as quickly as possible. One of the things that happens with test security investigations is it comes at the worst time, right? In the middle of testing. However, you can't put it off till Friday. You can't put it off till next week. If you've got an issue, a potential testing security situation, deal with it immediately. Particularly for a couple of reasons. One, we need to know about it in case there's something going on that is gone beyond your district. God forbid. But we're here to help you. So Danette and I are your first call as far as a potential breach of testing security. Pick up the phone, call us, we'll walk you through it. What you're looking at on that page is new to the TAM. That's a protocol for investigating. We've had a protocol for investigating missing materials. We need this protocol because what we have is a wide variety of stuff. So some of you guys who've been through potential testing security issues give me this huge pile of documentation, which is wonderful. It makes it much easier to deal with. It doesn't make it easy. It makes it much easier. Some of you guys have given me almost nothing as far as as documentation and information. Honestly, with very little information means there's very little chance that state board is going to do anything. And also specifically, having watched over the last couple of years, this is a hint from me to you. If you don't take any action at the school level, state board is highly unlikely to take any action with licensure or anything like that. If they don't see that it's serious to the district. So if you have a situation that's serious, if you as a district step up and suspend or take reprimand or serious action, then they are more likely to take serious action. So again, we'll talk through things with you. In a related topic, Danette and I are excellent resources if you need to call somebody and be told no. You know it's wrong, but you need to call the state and you need somebody from the state to say, no, you can't do that. Or if you have something that's really kind of a gray area and you need us to tell you no or yes, we'll happily talk over stuff with you. We want to backstop you guys in dealing with situations, particularly trying to deal with them before they happen rather than after they happen. All right. So let's talk about secure storage. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because Tuesday, I had something crazy happen. I put this slide up here, and this table over here starts bursting out laughing. For those of you who can't see it, the little picture on here is a bank vault. The reason they start laughing is it's Hamilton County. Hamilton County's offices, where the testing offices are, is in an old bank. They actually have a vault that they store district materials in. My only thought, they sent me pictures. It's one of the square door vaults, but they sent me pictures after we did this. And all I can think of is I can just see myself working in there one night, working on materials, and somebody closing the door, that kind of, wonder how much air is in here. Anyway, so you may not have a vault, you may not be Hamilton County, but you do need to make sure at the district level and at your school level that all of your rooms have a room that has locking capability on it for test materials. You particularly need a room that has a low key count. In other words, there are some rooms that may be keyed, but you know that half the people in the school have access to that room anyway. You want one that has a low level of key count. Yes, ma'am, I see you waving that hand at me way back there. Yes, ma'am? It's used, so we'll talk through that here in a second on which documents go with which, but thank you very much. All right, so you want to make sure it's a room with a low key count. I've been telling a story about through the week as a teenager. I was given access to the keys at my church I grew up in, and we took them to the drugstore and made copies. Not that we use them for evil, only for good, but we have them, and you know that there's people that have copies of keys of certain places. You want to make sure that the room you have is as secure as possible, because you are dealing with test materials. You want to make sure you're checking stuff in and out. You document using that test materials chain of custody form for paper materials. You document that who got those paper materials, where they're stored, how they're distributed, how they came back to you. You also want to make sure you're talking with your custodian about 2 or 3 things. One, you need to make sure that your custodian is trained on basic test administration, not so much that he can administer tests, but that he knows test security. 2, you want to make sure that he's trained not to throw away your boxes, because it happens. He's being really helpful. He wants to clean stuff up, and then when you try and ship back, you have no boxes there. And then you are just like last year out behind the liquor store looking for boxes. The third thing, though, is make sure that someone, custodian in particular, but anyone else, is not moving boxes to unusual places. I will tell you, particularly with fall EOC, because it is a small shipment and it comes UPS, be aware of when it's coming. November 14th is the date it's supposed to land. In many cases, it will be signed for by your executive assistant or your receptionist or someone at the front at the office, and then they will put it somewhere really safe and not tell you. I have lost count in 4.5 years of the number of times I've said, why don't you go check with your receptionist and see if she got a box from Questar? Oh yeah, I put it in the director's office. And the director went, that's a Questar box, I'll just set it down here, it'll be fine. No big deal, it goes with all the other boxes I get. So, check and make sure when you know you have a shipment coming, one of your first things to do, particularly if it is a small shipment. Larger shipments you'll usually get notified on. It is small stuff, Braille, paper form, those kinds of things that are likely to get shipped in a single box, and those don't always get flagged to you, even when they have your name on them. All right, documentation, the question that you asked. So everyone needs to, regardless of online or paper, fill out the form about test administration and security agreement. Anybody who administers tests or touches test documents in any way, shape, or form. Then, for the particular roles, for BTCs, test administrators, and proctors, which may well include custodians as far as that's probably the appropriate place to do, they need to sign off on those documents. Again, online or paper. The paper test document is only for that test materials chain of custody form. You do not need a chain of custody form for using Nextera. You do need it for paper documents, and that, by the way, includes paper documents that you're ordering, just Braille or just an extra paper document for a student who needs it. The TCAP security log is for your rooms, your testing rooms. What you do, for the most part, is going to just record who's the test administrator, who's the proctor, and then it's a sign-in and sign-out sheet for anyone who's in or out of those rooms during testing. Now, that is not students, that is any other adult. Honestly, it is more about discouraging people from doing the whole I'm just going to drop in and watch testing thing, because it keeps a record of who is in and out of a room. It is meant, again, to encourage good people not to do stupid stuff. In fact, those of you who saw my presentation in the spring, the first thing in it was a Post-it note that said, don't do stupid stuff. That really is the heart of test security. Lori Driver, one of our ambassadors, said to the new DTCs last week that a lot of what test security is about is keeping good people from doing stupid things that will cause them to get caught in the gears of the process. There are the malevolent folks out there, and you guys catch them, and you guys help us take care of that, and we appreciate that very much. But lots of the test security problems we see are good people doing something stupid, and we want to try and prevent that as much as possible. The seating chart, computer log, there is not a specific form because that's going to depend on your district, what works best for you. Here's the reason you want to do that. How many of you guys had to do cash recovery in the spring? I don't see a lot of you. Here's the deal. If you did do cash recovery, you know why you want a computer log. You want to know exactly which kid and which computer went together. It is not quite as big a deal if you're a one-to-one district. Obviously, you should know which computer the kid is on. But the majority of you guys are not one-to-one districts. So if you have a computer lab and you have a kid and you know where he was seated, you know which computer he was on. If he is having trouble submitting, pull the computer out of service. Put a Post-it note on it or tape a sign in front or whatever, and don't have somebody else test on it. You do not want to confuse the situation any farther than that. It makes it simpler, not necessarily easy, to go ahead and do a cache recovery if nobody else has used that computer for testing. If it is for a card, is even more important. Yes, ma'am. Yes? Yep.
Thank goodness we had those computers in the child match.
Yep.
We closed the whole thing down until it was all taken care of.
So they use crime scene tape to close off the computer lab, and we're able to take care of it with that. Now that's not, the crime scene tape doesn't do cache recovery for you. What it does is keep anybody else from getting on the computers. Card is a particularly big issue, guys, because once you take a kid away from that computer and stick it on the cart, if you don't know which computer that kid was on, you now have an entire cart worth of stuff to deal with. It is not a short process. They worked diligently to try and get stuff done, but it's not a short process to start with. Making it harder to find makes it an even longer process. Now, all of that said, part of the reason that we are decoupling CAB, part of the reason that we are removing certain item types away from the assessment. We're doing everything we can to protect it so that moving TTS back to the original text-to-speech format that we used last fall. All of those things are to protect from us ever needing cash recovery. But you will notice that we went ahead and included cash recovery instructions in the TAM this fall so that they are there and you have them if you need them. Again, we don't want to go there, but in case we have to, we're ready for it. All right, electronics. The electronics rules are pretty simple. Make sure that from students that you're collecting their electronics, whatever they are, there's again the non-exhaustive list because who knows what Apple and Google will come up with next as far as electronic stuff that's connected into people's heads or whatever. But in all seriousness, make sure it's turned off. You'll notice one of the things we had you guys do is turn off everything so we could restart in here. One of the things that happens when we have a whole lot of people hitting access points, it knocks people off. If you have your cell phone hitting an access point and a computer hitting an access point, eventually you're going to overload those wireless access points and not be able to get it. So get the phone, turn it off. The other reason you want to turn it off is because students are somewhat like the little old lady that you go to church with who does not know how to turn off her cell phone, right? So either like in the middle of prayer, all of a sudden Beyonce's All the Single Ladies starts playing. You guys have been there. You know what I'm talking about. You don't want that happening in the middle of testing. You don't want that happening in the middle of the church. Either way, so get them to turn off their phones. We do have some suggestions in dealing with that. One of those suggestions is have them get a Sharpie and baggies, have them put them in a bag, put the phone in a baggie and put their name on it. Phones in some cases, look a lot alike. Mine doesn't. I have this really great case. You know why it's great? It was on clearance. No one else wanted it. So my phone doesn't look like anybody else's because I'm cheap. Anyway, but that's not true for a lot of kids. You don't want to hand the wrong phone to the wrong child at all. You also want to probably store them securely in the room rather than taking them down the hall or around the corner or whether. If there is some kind of emergency where you need to move the students quickly and you want to get phones back to them in order for them to be able to contact folks if they need to leave the building, having them in the room makes more sense if you want to put them in a closet or in a cabinet or whatever, but having them there where you need them. Also, you want to communicate those expectations to parents. It is much easier to send parents a note and explain that the student will not be able to receive texts or phone calls during the testing window than it is for mom to try and text their child like 10 times and then go through the whole, he's dead in a ditch on the side of the road. I say this as someone who's married to a person who would jump to that conclusion immediately. So tell parents ahead of time, much more fun than dealing with half-crazed mom. Temptation is a big thing, not just for kids, it's also for adults. Here's the one reason that you should have a cell phone in the testing area as an adult, and that is if you have no other communication choices. If you're out in a portable building, the district has not strung phone out to that point, you've got a phone system in your room, you do not need a cell phone. And I say that as someone who habitually checks their cell phone. You know what I mean? Every once in a while, check email, check Facebook. This morning I've gotten texts from my wife. Yesterday I got a text from Sonic. Went and looked at 56 corn dogs yesterday. Anyways, I told you, National Fast Food Day is my holiday. So in all seriousness though, it is so easy to use this. So if you don't need it, turn it off, have them put it off, turn it off, put it in the desk drawer. If they need it for emergency communication, only should be the only reason that they have it, and they should only be using it to do emergency communication, not play Angry Birds or do text. The same thing is true with laptops. And the laptops is very simply this. Laptop, the only reason it should be open is it's open to Nextera admin so that they can track submissions for students. Otherwise, they do not need to be on it. And here is the basic reason why, beyond the fact that they shouldn't be checking email or potentially taking pictures or recording anything. It's this. They're administering a test. If you are administering a test, if I am proctoring all of you here and I have my head down and I am busy doing my grades that I need to do, what can you guys be doing right now? Anything. I mean, cheating, yes, but seriously, I have no idea what's going on in the rest of the room. My head is down. That's when we have crazy things like kids taking pictures of tests. That's when we have crazy stuff like, I will suggest to you also that you be careful about your seating. we had an interesting thing. We found out that we had 2 students that figured out they could both see each other's monitors. They could use the notes function to message each other. So in Nextera, it's big enough, it shows up that thing, and so they were in a math test and they were sending each other answers via notes function. Now you couldn't send it from computer to computer, but as long as you could see the screen, they were good to do that. That was you guys, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah, they're in trouble. They got in trouble. And that's, again, but Proctor catches them because the Proctor's paying attention, not head down into a laptop. So, laptop only for Nextera admin, cell phone only for emergency communications. Otherwise, adults should not have electronics in there as well. You need to train your building testing coordinators on all these different things, including state security law, state guidelines. Any local policy that you have, you're welcome to create local policies that are appropriate to your district and to your schools, to particular situations that go above and beyond the state guidelines. That is perfectly acceptable. If you need to talk to us about something like that, that's fine. Heather's going to talk to you about communication here in just a little bit. We will back you guys up on those things. Those are district decisions on how to do that, but you need to make sure that you train folks on those things. You also need to ensure that your BTCs train your test administrators, your proctors, custodians, anyone else who has contact with the test. You need to make sure you document that that's happening, or they're documenting it. These test security forms make that easier to do, but the reason is that an untrained test administrator is likely to do something crazy. So we had one situation last year where a test administrator, they do pretty well as long as nothing goes wrong, right? Because they've done it before, they've been around. Untrained test administrator, BTC did not follow through and train them, actually, and didn't even really bother and worry about it. Stuck them in a room. It was one of the days where we were having submission problems. Freaked out, didn't know what to do next, didn't know who to call next, so had a brilliant idea. Everybody take out your cell phones and take a picture of your essay so that you don't lose it. There's a part of me that's really frustrated with the TA, but there's a part of me even more so that's frustrated with the building testing coordinator. Because this is on them for not doing an adequate job of training and getting them the information. Who do I call next? When we talk about communications plan, the communications plan that Danette put up there, which basically is a one-pager to show you, if you've got a problem, call this person. If you've got this kind of problem, call this person. So you know, clear the test administrators or building testing coordinators know clearly what is their next step, not make it up as you go along. Yes, ma'am, I saw that hand.
Well, the online training that you guys talked about, well, if we place our standard, we're gonna have a meeting training on this.
I think it will be able to for test administrators. I want to suggest that you probably still want to have your BTCs doing that at that level. For smaller districts, I know that lots of you guys have done test administrator training as like one big thing. That's okay. We do not care how you do it. We care that it gets done and that the content is done well.
But it will be thorough enough that
It will be thorough. Yes, it will be thorough. We're going to continue as well with the the DTC information. It's the stuff from last spring is still up there. I did a basic test security presentation, which worked really well, pretty much for any level of talking through all the rules of how test security works. All of the tutorial videos that are available currently on the Nextera website are excellent resources for folks in trying to figure out how to deal with Nextera. Having your test administrators work through some of the basics of those is a good idea as well. That training will come out this next month and be available to you guys. And then the VTC training, which we're developing, will come out in the spring. Document everything that you're doing and all that. All right, we're going to scavenger hunt a little bit about accommodations here for a minute. So get that TAM back out. Can a student read the test out loud to himself? And if so, does that require an IEP plan? So she's got the right answer. Where is that answer? Page what? 60. The answer is yes and no. Yes, they can do it. No, they don't. These charts are very helpful to you in finding accommodations answers. We have a new accommodations person, like I shared with you earlier. Leslie is going to be a great help to you. We'll continue to work with you on all of those things. We have now a number of folks that have more direct experience exactly in your roles, and that's going to be real helpful to you in making sure we get you the right information. But what you have here is the administration guidelines as well as the basics of this is something in an IEP or 504 plan. Where do I find confirmation that English learners no longer have EL excluded? Anyone? All right, page 64. There's a chart there. That's actually the second paragraph is what we're looking at right there. There, my clicker's working again. There we go. It basically says that they take all general ed assessments. However, it also reminds you to use that second paragraph in talking with somebody that accountability and growth are staged in over 3 years for first year, second year, and third year English learner. All right. What about, where do you find information on what to do with a student who has a broken hand? $61? All right, it's right there. Note, this is the important new thing on this page. This is not substantially changed from previous. Right here, you need to file an emergency 504 plan for that student because you are giving them an accommodation. So, it is an emergency 504 plan. It is a hassle, but it is something that we have been told you are required to do. So, we're warning you now. One of the things I would ask really quickly on these kinds of things is, except for something like where they're doing typing or whatever, or they're doing serious typing, ask if it's the dominant hand or not. If I break my left hand, I can do a math. Well, no, I can't do math, but I can take a math test. I can't pass it. But it's one of those things of knowing exactly what the situation you're dealing with is. Which I can't. I am the wrong person to ask that question. And Kevin asked, can I explain why it's required? The answer is no. I know that it is required. I am not able to explain why it's required. All right. I need to look at something real quickly here. Make sure I'm on the right page. I believe it is page 67. It is. Take a look at page 67, please, in the TAM. Page 67 is instructions on read aloud text to speech. And here's the deal. Well, where'd it go? My slides got changed. Interesting. So there has been a change in the policy that's written there on page 67. That policy about passages not being read will be implemented in 1920, not in 1819. So.
Say that again.
What? So page 67 applies to next year, not to this year. Not specifically passages not being read. There's an instruction in that first, whatever it is. This thing right here. Thank you, Kevin. So there is not a change yet in that. That change is coming. But all right, with all of that said, I'm going to introduce you to Sandy Qualls. Sandy Qualls is our ELA content specialist. She's going to share with you some specific content-oriented issues and assessment development issues.
So every time he introduces me, he
I say
calls them
issues.
issues. They're not issues. They're just things you probably need to know. So when we were putting our slides together, Mark failed to mention that he was going to include a game. So, I need to come closer. Okay. So he failed to mention that he was going to include a game, which really puts me at a disadvantage because I really don't have anything cutesy to present to you. So I'm going to think real quick on my feet the other day in Nashville, like what could I add to my presentation to make it sound like I was going to be fun and interesting too. So then I was thinking like, I'm a former English major and classroom teacher, and so, hey, let's have a theme. So we're going to have a theme for the little party for the next 6 slides, and the theme is going to be simplify. So that is the theme that we're going to follow through when it comes to the design of our assessments for this administration. And when you simplify, you can streamline. Because we all know the difficulties that we experienced in the spring, and those were not fun for anyone. So when we step back and look at those situations and issues, and realizing that if we can simplify and streamline the assessment process, even on the design side of things, then it helps logistically. So here are some things that we have done to simplify and streamline. It's gonna bother you guys if I stand here. Okay. I just feel, as a former classroom teacher, I always just knew never turn your back. Just don't ever turn your back. So it still makes me nervous to turn my back on anyone. So as you know, we do have the assessment blueprints have been put out for the districts. And once again, simplified. We thought this was a great idea. Less is more. And the districts told us no. Change is scary. We do not like these blueprints. So let me just kind of give you a little background information on why we chose to create the blueprints as we did. So if you notice, the blueprints look like this, and there's just not a lot of information on there. And the purpose behind this design is that we don't change them every single year, because you know that to me was probably one of the most frustrating things, is that every time you turn around something's changing. I don't like change. So let's go ahead and create something that we can stick with moving forward, because what happens is classroom teachers, instead of going to tn.gov/education and looking up blueprints, they just Google Tennessee blueprints, and they grab a blueprint, and then all of a sudden, halfway through the year, they realize they have 2010, 2011. So if we go ahead and get with a design and stick with it, it just is going to make sense moving forward. However, we heard from a lot of educators, some of you may have sent us emails, that you didn't like the change and that it was confusing. And the major question that kept popping up is why does the state no longer believe in the importance of writing? And I'm confused. I thought we still believed in the importance of writing. And they pointed out that on the blueprints, you will notice a column that says ideal percentage of items. And in the past, that has been percentage of score points. And so if you were to look at the writing, it says 2 to 4%, which would appear to be that we were saying that writing had 2 to 4% of the score points. But there was a little asterisk down at the bottom that says this indicates the percentage of items, not the percentage of score points. And if I had $1 for every time I sent that clarifying email, well, I wouldn't be here. I'd be on the beach somewhere. So that being said, that you quickly realized that that wasn't something on anyone else except for us providing explicit clarification. And we apologize if we made you nervous to think that writing was no longer an important piece of not only instruction, but of course assessment as well. So what we have done is we have created and updated our overview documents. How many of you have seen the overview documents? Oh, that's not a whole lot, is it? Okay, so the overview documents are on the website. Don't Google, just go to tn.gov/education, and they're on our assessment page, and they give detailed information about all of our assessments. So for ELA, there's one for the optional grade 2, there's one that covers grades 3 through 5, one for 6 through 8, and then one for EOC. That's the same for math, and of course there's one for social studies as well. It's my understanding there is not one for science, because our science is a field test year, not an operational year. On those overview documents, you will find a great deal of detail. I see a lot of people nodding their heads. There's a lot of detailed information, including the percentage of score points. And you will notice that writing is important. It has a large percentage of those score points, just as it has in the years past. Still the same scoring rubric, still the same process that we will go through to score those. So those overview documents are there for you and your educators in your district to learn more about the assessment. So you will notice item types, the subpart timing, and also, like I mentioned, the percentage of score points. However, we always encourage you that if there is information that you need from us, do not hesitate to reach out to us. That is what we are here for. It is our pleasure to serve you and answer any questions. The last thing we want is for anyone to feel some unease because they do not have the information that they need. If we are able to provide it, we are more than happy to do so. Just please let us know. So I'm going to just breeze through some test design updates, keeping in mind our theme, simplify and streamline the process. So as you will notice, we do have a list for you of those assessments that are operational this coming year. And you will notice that, of course, our field test year for science, all of the assessments are paper-based except for science and EOC. Those are online. So here are the ELA updates. Some of you may have heard that there will not be any double weighting, any grades for ELA. A decision was made. This decision was made for two reasons. Reason number one is when changes have been made, it's very important to consider when did we standard set? When did we determine those cut scores? So anytime that you revise your standards, then you need to have a standard setting year. That year was 2016-17. Once you standard set, you really and truly should not make design changes because then you're moving your baseline. So in order to stick to that standard setting year and keep that baseline, a lot of design changes that might have been made, we're reverting back to that baseline standard setting year. Once again, simplifying and streamlining. Therefore, there will not be double weighting on the ELA portion, that writing portion. Also, it could have implications for instruction in the classroom. And you and I are both well aware that there's different types of writing, and some require more technical input than focus and organization and development. So we want to make sure that if we are looking forward in that college and career ready student, that there is emphasis placed on all different types of writing. And that being said, we're not double weighting any of the traits on that writing rubric. Also, you will notice that our item types are very simplistic. So students will experience, of course, the writing prompt, multiple choice, and multiple select. What you will not see is the hot text, the drag and drop. I call them the frou-frou items. So anytime you try to add some frou-frou-ness to an assessment, it can cause hiccups along the way. We know that in order to have a successful administration, reducing those frou-frou technicalities help us in moving forward in a successful administration. Now, doesn't mean that students will not be providing evidence from the text. We will still have the EDSR, the Part A, the Part B, but those will be multiple choice. It will not be a hot text or the drag and drop. So I really and truly wish that I could just breeze through this slide, and I'm hoping some of you in the back can't even see what's at the bottom. Those of you at the front already have the look on your face of what in the world. So yes, you will notice that subpart timing has changed for English 1 and 2. So now there will be 3 subparts instead of the 4. And I'm sure your initial response is, oh, that's great. What we've had to do is we have had to combine subparts 3 and 4 together. That time is a 95-minute time. Now, I want to step out of my role as the ELA specialist, and I want to step into the role as a former classroom teacher, a current parent who has just survived graduating 2 students from high school. Thank you. And let you know that we never make these decisions lightly, and we will never be flippant about the fact that this decision has been made. once again, streamline and simplify. One of the issues is the number of times you submit. If we can reduce the number of times students submit, then we're moving towards that success of the administration. So keeping in mind, my husband's a high school guidance counselor. My boss's husband is a social studies teacher. My math counterpart, his wife, is a principal. So we live, eat, and breathe education, whether we're at home or at work. So it's not just a decision made lightly. If you can see the chart paper we have up on the walls, the pros and cons, the fighting and fussing and arguing that goes on amongst us when we make these decisions, I guess I'm just trying to let you know this is not made lightly. And so this decision has been made just for ELA and just for our older population of students taking the assessment. And we'll discuss what that break will look like during that 95 minutes. I also want you to know that when we made this decision, we did research. So we searched out across the country to look at the timing for other assessments in other states, and this time was either comparable or less than. So we felt, once again, that doing our due diligence and homework, that this was a decision we could make moving forward. So here are the math updates. We have eliminated the problem-solving subscore category. Once again, going back to that 2016-17 standard setting year. So those integrated items will not appear on the assessment. And those of you familiar with the math know that those integrated items can be broken down into single items, set to or aligned to one standard. Students will still see those, and some of those items may have the same stimulus attached to them. So you'll notice that there are multiple choice items, multiple select, and in the past with our math items, it would just say select all that apply. We are moving away from that phrasing in the STEM, and we're moving towards select 2 or select 3 or however many the student needs to select. Now, students will still see some of those items because they're in our item bank. And items in the item bank need to be utilized, but we are moving forward. Our math development will only include STEMs that explicitly state the exact number that the student needs to choose. So there will be text entry. However, the graphing will be an actual multiple choice. It will not be an interactive graphing. So we're not saying that we're eliminating the graphing items. We're simplifying the graphing items. And instead of having the students create them, it will be a multiple select choice there. And then the matching tables. I'm not a math person. Anyone that knows me knows math is not my forte. But normally the people that hear this about the matching tables are like, oh, that's great. So those of you that understand math, you're going to really like this, supposedly. The matching tables, we're streamlining that as well. There used to be quite a large variety of those matching tables, and now they're just going to be either the 2x3 or the 3x4. No one seems overly excited about that in here, but yay, thank you. Yes, Memphis was just pumped. Okay, so social studies updates. As you're aware, there has been a pause put on grades 3 through 5, and as you know, that's because of the revisions made to the social studies standards and moving some of those around. So we're pausing on grades 3 through 5, but moving forward with grades 6 through 8, and you can see the item types that our students will experience on that assessment. There will be multiple choice, multiple select, and then the 2-point and the 4-point written response. And then, of course, the U.S. history does have the written response, that writing prompt, and the multiple choice and the multiple select. This is my favorite slide because there's really nothing on it because it says we'll have more information to come. So information about the item types and the structure will be released in October. I can tell you that just a few weeks ago, we pulled our amazing science educators and our science TN Ready ambassadors together along with ETS, and they worked on item development. So ETS brought their items, and also we had an item writer workshop. So getting our educators once again involved in the process of developing our items aligned to our new revised standards. So here is the slide I promised you about the longer subpart break. So as you know, English 1 and 2 has that third subpart that's a little longer in length. And so it is definitely recommended, and in fact, explicit instructions will be given about what that break could look like. So I know, in the elementary grade, they'll do the stand-up, head, shoulders, knees, and toes. I really don't know how well our high school students would respond to that, but we do know that they'll need some type of little short stretch break. And our understanding is as long as they're standing and continue to stand right there in front of their electronic device, then, the stretching there is fine. However, if it is decided that students are going to step away from their electronic devices, then it will need to be paused. And then that would require the proctor using that proctor password to reopen their assessment. But we did want to make you aware of the options there for the break, and then what would need to happen if it is decided that they actually need to step away for a restroom break or something of that nature. Okay, and the last update I have from the design aspect of the assessment is, I think, a good one. So kind of saving the best for last. As you know, in the past, those answer documents sure have caused a lot of issues. As someone said, it's almost like a Vegas card dealer trying to shuffle the cards and figure out who gets what, trying to match the answer document to the correct form. However, that will no longer be the case. So each subject or content area will have one answer document. So you do not have to worry about the matching of the answer documents. In order to make that change and to simplify and streamline that process, we removed the information from the answer document that would direct students to select two or, one of those exacting pieces of their directions. So we just want to go ahead and let you know that that has been removed. So as your teachers are working with your students, they can kind of help them understand that they just need to refer to the item, either, in the booklet or, they're in front of them about how many they need to select. So that's just a detail that students will need to pay attention to. But in order to streamline and remove the difficulty of wrong stickers on answer documents and having to peel and all of the trouble that caused, we have streamlined the answer document piece. So that wasn't too painful, I hope. Once again, let me reiterate, if you have any cares, concerns, normally I would say rude remarks, but I'm not going to invite for rude remarks since I work in a world of assessment. But if you have anything that you need clarification on, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. That's what we're here for.
All right, thank you, Sandy. Lunch is coming in just a moment. We're making sure that they've got everything ready, but I want to, before we do that, refer to a couple of things that Sandy talked about. Are we good? So give me 2 minutes and then I'll release you to lunch, okay? It's like, what kids are like when they know the bell's coming and they're just watching the second hand. Anyway, so first, with the issue of that issue of stand-up breaks, just a reminder, we'll give you specific instructions about this, but Nextera, the test delivery system, you'll see it abbreviated as TVS sometimes, it does not time students. The test administrator times students. So if you take a 2-minute stand-up break, add 2 minutes to the end of it. It's a break as far as that goes. If you are going to walk them away from it, and I'm going to encourage you not to plan to do that, because the process of proctor passwording everybody in the room is going to add substantially to your testing time. All right, and then the other thing, this is about multiple select questions. It's important to note that there are no multiple select questions which have a single answer. That isn't multiple select, that's multiple choice. Multiple select questions will all have at least 2 answers. We don't want to get tricky with kids. If we say multiple select, you're going to select 2 or more. And again, like Sandy said, the instructions are now going to appear only on the item, not on the answer document. That allows us to build an answer document that can be used with any version of that particular test. That makes it much more straightforward. And like she said, it doesn't mean you have to play the match the answer document, match the test book game, which none of us enjoyed this last time around.